People say to me sometimes, I understand the teachings. I've read your books. I've seen you on the live stream. What's the advanced teaching?
When our ego flexes, it comes from 4 areas. And when you realize that these 4 areas are false,
The body temple, when there's proper nutrition, proper exercise, proper thought, proper hydration, etc., you're able to hold more of the energy that the cosmos is trying to flow through you. So many people develop a lot of stagnation. They're eating incorrectly. They're eating dead food. They're eating food that's not conducive to their health. So that it creates the condition of disease and disharmony. So nutrition, if we actually think that this is a temple of the living God, you're going to treat it properly. It's not just a bag of bones, as they used to call it back in the day. It has an intelligence of its own. It listens to what you're thinking. The cells hear your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts and replicate that in chemistry, toxic or tonic, depending on what mood you're in. And food does the same thing. And so if a person is wise, then they'll be very mindful of what they put in the temple, as well as what comes out of their mouth, because obviously the tongue can be a blessing or a curse, so it's what goes in and what comes out. So, I've developed a practice over the years of being mindful about what goes in the temple, and it's been adjustments along the way, and being mindful of what comes out of my mouth. I only want to say what I want to experience, so I'm not going to curse somebody, because I don't want to be cursed. I'm not going to put anybody down because I don't want the universal law to bring me down. So it's an affirmation coming out, and it's good food with good, nutrition and energy going in, and therefore, based on karmic propensities and so much other, your body temple, we're gifted to live a long time. Most people check out way before they're supposed to physically.
Check out early.
They say, they check out.
Let me get an early checkout, please.
They think, 75 years is a long time, but the body is coded to go 100, 110, 125, So that also begins in thought. You have to actually think like that. And you actually have to have an underlying purpose for your existence, not just fitting into the status quo, accumulating a bunch of stuff until you die. There has to be something larger than that to keep you around. Yeah.
You're the first person that I heard that from, that truth about being able to handle that type of energy. A lot of people go to events and they learn things and they want to transform their life. But I think a lot of people have wondered and questioned this, like, why don't people change? They get the information, they get the experience, but what I'm hearing is sometimes we can't hold that energy. We might have to, even if we hear something powerful and we want to go and take action, we got to lay down and take a nap. We just can't even contain that energy.
It is absolutely true. I was thinking about that on 2 levels. I was watching like people who get famous and they're not plugged in, to the energy within themselves, and then fame takes them down. It overloads their circuits. They become addicted to the energy that's feeding them temporarily, but they can't really hold it themselves. And then they find that they actually need an audience to give them that energy. So they become addicted to that, you see. And then the average person, as you say, they get a lot of information, but there's information that informs and there's information that transforms. And so a lot of people are accumulating information, but it's not transformative. They're not digesting it. They don't have a practice that's actually assimilating the information until it becomes real knowledge, and so they may go get high for the weekend at a seminar, but then by Monday, they've reverted back to their old patterns because they don't have an underlying practice and a higher purpose to keep them going. And oftentimes, they're not really going to change, they're going to get something. If I get that, I'm going to be happy. But real transformation is about an inner dynamic of change within yourself, which is not an easy thing to do. It's simple, but it's not easy. But if you're willing, you can participate in your own transformation. And so there are people that just want to accumulate information, and they become very academic about things. There's nothing wrong with academics at all, but they'll have a lot of information, but it's not embodied yet.
Yeah. You call that a human filing cabinet, right?
A human filing cabinet. You see a lot of people that they're in universities, the ivory towers. They can teach it. I mean, I've seen this a lot of times with the business classes. People are teaching all things about business. They never had a business. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
I remember a professor at USC one time said, this people staying at home and watching videos, that's going to die out. He was in the business.
Oh, wow.
When Blockbuster was getting big, and then it was transforming into what we have today, Netflix and all these different things. He said, this is a fad. People aren't going to stay home. They're going to want to go out all the time. He had no idea about what was emerging. He had all this information,
right,
but wasn't tapped into what was happening.
Yeah, he thought people would still enjoy the hunt
right.
of going to Blockbuster,
right,
and searching for your video,
right.
Yeah. So, it's so interesting because you just said something really profound. It's not just what is coming in, which is what we're making our body out of, what we're making our brain out of, but it's what's coming out as well. And so for both of those things to be in sync.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned a universal law, basically speaking things into reality.
Right.
Isn't just speaking something, that's a creation in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it's energy. When we hear the different scriptures say things like, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. It's speaking, I call it a cellular logos. It's the logos, it's an energy, it's a vibration that then becomes flesh. It condenses itself into perception, it condenses itself into thoughts, it condenses itself into experience. So oftentimes people are just casual with their conversations, not understanding that they're actually setting something in motion. Oh, my poor back. Oh, I don't like this person. Gossiping, talking bad about themselves even. They're setting things in motion. So I like to say, I don't want to say what I don't want to experience. I want to say what I want to experience. So I'll say it's a magnificent day. Life is good. There's a way out of this. There's an answer to this issue. There's a solution somewhere. I'm going to stay there until that becomes flesh. But it's practice because individuals, particularly now, people have normalized negativity. They've made fear popular. You know what I mean? And that's become, you're an oddball if in fact you're operating at a different level. They think you're just weird, And so you'd rather be an oddball in a crazy world than to be normal in a crazy world, Yeah, but I always caution people, and I'll check people with me. I say, well, wait a minute. There's unlimited good here. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not here. There's unlimited possibilities. Don't block yourself in to what your mind thinks is possible. This is the only way that some good is going to come into your life. It becomes that's blocked. No good's going to come in. Infinite ways miracles can happen. Your mind will call them miracles, but they're just demonstrations of truth. So why block yourself in? Just stop it. Just say you don't know how it's going to happen right now. You're available to it. Let's see what happens. Let the universal presence, through its laws, shock and surprise you.
Normalize that.
Right, normalize that. Yeah.
I'm literally just still ruminating on normalizing fear.
Yeah.
It's a system within us that, of course, has provided us value over our evolution for sure. But today, to live in that state habitually, we're not wired up to live that way. We're not designed to be that way. And so even with so many folks having their aspirations, goals, everybody listening right now has incredible potential to achieve things beyond our wildest imagination.
Right.
But I think so often, and fear being a big driving force of this, we get caught up in what if instead of what is. So how do we go from what if to what is?
Yeah. Well, what if can also be used positively. You know, what if everything works out? You know, what if I have more than enough money? You can go there and you'll get to what is. Because what is that right here and right now, all of the power, all of the presence, all of the intelligence, all of the love, all that is already here. It's already here. It may be latent within us, but it is here. And as we begin to think like that and contemplate that truth, our frequency rises. We begin to hang in that awareness. Now, what has happened is that individuals have normalized fear, which means their attention is more on what they don't want than on what they do want. So what people don't understand is that anything you don't want, you're having a relationship with it. It's existing, and you're not wanting it. And so people walk out, I don't want to be broke. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to I don't want to catch the coronavirus. I don't want to. So in that moment of I don't want to, the law doesn't distinguish between what you want and don't want. It only knows what you're interested in. And so if you're interested in not getting robbed, not getting poor, not catching a disease, you're in relationship with that. And then that's what you manifest. Now, you may not manifest that exactly, but your body temple doesn't know the difference. You'll still produce toxic chemicals, immediate toxic chemicals, immediate create the condition for disease. So I teach people, you get what you want or don't want. The law doesn't differentiate. So stop placing all of your attention on what you don't want to happen and begin to place your attention on what you like to see unfold in your life. Begin to describe it. You know, the law says, you don't describe what you see what you describe. So if you're living in an accurate description of possibility, then the law starts to bring that into manifestation, you see. And now most people should be taught this in elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, but instead, we have the nefarious forces that keep people in fear, and keeping them all pumped up about what to be afraid of next. Oh, the Russians. Oh, Corona. Oh, aliens. Oh, whatever it is. People are nervous. We're not meant to be like that. We are an absolute reflection of the entire cosmos. What do we have to be afraid of? There's no such thing as death. You see, so there's no loss in the cosmic scheme, but everybody they've allowed themselves to shrink into being a little old something, and then they normalize their fear. Shakespeare said, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths," constantly, even before anything even happens. They've rehearsed all the negative stuff. It's not funny, but it is kind of a comedy. What human beings do to themselves.
I love this so much. This is what I wanted to ask you about this today. I wanted to ask you about the comedy of life.
Yeah.
And the sickness that we can get caught in of taking life too seriously, of taking everything so seriously.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, there's nothing serious going on in the universe. Nothing at all. The universe is a big explosion of joy and ecstasy and bliss. Okay, so if you got to stretch your perception a little bit. There's no such thing as death, and there's no such thing as loss. Okay, yeah, you're going to exit a body temple when it's your time. In the world of the phenomena, things come, things go. We don't deny that, but there's nothing serious happening. So since there's nothing serious happening, what is happening? What's happening is the universal presence and all of its creation is continuing to expand, to reveal the infinite nature. So that means you get to play. It's our time to play in this, Now we create seriousness, NBA championships going on. We create a serious time crunch. Mm-hmm. Time doesn't really exist, but we play with it. Okay, we only have this many minutes, and when the end of the game, whoever has more points, they win. The other person loses. Oh, that's serious. It's not really. it's called we call it a consistent irrelevancy. You know what I mean? It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's consistent. It's fun. At the end of the day,
It's a social agreement. We all truly we just made that up.
We just make it up.
It's all made up.
Yeah. It's so the idea is that we are here as joy babies. We to tap into that joy. And the thing about it is, when you move into conscious joy and gratitude, now you may have heard this from your mom, and it probably spans all cultures. Our parents saying to us, if you don't stop crying, I'm gonna give you something to cry about. It's pretty common, right?
I've gotten that one.
Yeah. The universe says, if you don't stop being grateful, I'm gonna give you something to be grateful for. It's the same law.
I like that.
So as you lift your attention to being grateful for anything, for the next breath you're about to take, the next beating of your heart, then the universe will find something that matches that field. And it will shock you because it will come outside of your present perception. We have a perception of life, and then in this perception, we want this, we want that to be happy, we want that to be happy. We don't know all of this exists. But if you go into the feeling of gratitude, then all of this opens up for you. And this is when you're surprised by things. You meet the person you were supposed to meet. You didn't even know that person existed, but that's the person you needed to meet to go to the next level of your unfoldment. Opportunities show up, possibilities show up that you didn't even know existed, just because you're in the feeling tone of possibility. You see, we're not taking it seriously. What I say is, we don't take things seriously, we take things reverentially. I have a reverence for life. I have a reverence for that plant. I have a reverence for the trees. I have a reverence for the ground. I have a reverence for Mother Nature. I have a reverence for human beings. I revere it, but it's not serious. It's a reverence, So sometimes in religiosity, they will mistake the two. Think reverence means serious. No, it means my heart is open. I really appreciate the flowing of the rivers. I appreciate all sentient beings. I have a deep reverence. And that's spiritual. That's open-hearted. Yeah.
The reason I want to ask you about that is because I think it's a lot easier. I know it's a lot easier today to get wrapped up in the seriousness of, all of the attention, for example, that we might get with social media.
Right.
There was a little meme going around that, essentially a meme was like, the internet is crazy. You're never supposed to know this many people. It's just like, we're not supposed to know 5,000 people. That's never existed before. And caring about the opinions of 5,000 people.
Right.
And so I think carrying that level of, everything is so serious. If somebody that is 20 times removed, 200 times removed from actually knowing you says something negative about you, and it can just take you down.
Right.
And so carrying a little bit more of a light heart with things to even not take ourselves so seriously, for example.
Right.
I think it could be a helpful tool today.
Right. Yeah. We don't take ourselves seriously. We love and appreciate ourselves. And we learn not to be overly concerned about what other people are thinking about us. And then we learn not to be overly concerned about our own thoughts about ourselves, because we don't know where they came from. It may have come from our parents. It may have come from people in high school that said something crazy about you. All that stuff may be going around. We learn to be conscious of what the presence is saying about us. I've always loved this scripture. I'm not a religious man, but I'm a spiritual man. So when I look at scripture, I see the spiritual essence, not the literal, And I've always loved the scripture that says, God's eyes are too pure to behold inequity. That this presence doesn't see anything but itself. It only sees potential. It doesn't see anything negative, because if it did, that meant that negative would last forever, because God only sees the eternal. So God's eyes are too pure to behold inequity. And it goes on to talk about the fact that I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So on a spiritual level, the presence saying, I know what I think about you. Thoughts of peace. I know your potential. I know what's going to unfold already. So we want to think like that, And then, I mean, of course, we're not allowing the ego to steal it, like I'm better than someone, I'm superior than someone, not any of that. Just as a unique expression of infinite potential, I'm here to reflect and to reveal the cosmos in a way that only I can. And nobody else can do it like me. And I can't do it like anybody else. I'm incomparable. We're all incomparable, you see. And it frees us. So you're able to go out in the world, and the two imposters, criticism and praise, those are two imposters. You're able to sidestep them. You know, you're not running towards praise, and you're not running from criticism. Mm-hmm. You just look at them, see what you can glean from them. Oh, this person doesn't like me. Okay, is there anything for me to learn there? Any place for me to grow? Oh, there's some praise. I don't want to get addicted to that. You know, I can take it as feedback. Oh, I'm doing something right. That's cool. I love it. Beautiful. But I'm not living to run towards one and run away from the other. It's just feedback. Yeah. You know, I'm actually going in and getting my cues from my interior awareness. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's also, I think it's really challenging for a lot of folks today.
Sure.
And
you just said it.
Yeah.
People are on this internet, they're on this social media, and they actually think that somebody out there is saying whatever they're saying is important.
And more than ever today, I think it was you, WMDs, right? Weapons of mass distraction.
Distraction, right.
And all of this stuff going on is stealing our attention and making us kind of outsource things to the external world a lot more. I think, a lot of folks they're so deeply tied into it that it makes it difficult to go within. So what I want to ask you is, how do we turn that around? How do we get closer to what's most real about us?
Yeah, I mean, that question right there, if an individual would ask that question of themselves, how do I get closer to what's real within me? Their mind will start to turn inward rather than outward. And they'll start to catch insights and revelations and wisdom and guidance because they're interested in it. Yeah. Rather than, how can I make that person like me? How can I get closer to me? And then we'll be guided. But of course, there's age-old practices of concentration, contemplation, meditation. These are all ways of watching our own thoughts, our own moods, and then something sweet and wonderful happens. You'll have an insight that, wow, all this stuff passing through, that's not even me. That's just stuff passing through. Who's me? Oh, I'm the one watching. And the moment you realize you're not the stuff passing through, that's a step in enlightenment. That's like, I'm not identified with all of that stuff passing through. I teach people, we have the ocean, and then you have the content of the ocean. There's seaweed, there's plankton, there's fish, there's boats, there's human pollution. All of that's in the ocean, but it's not the ocean. We are consciousness, and then this stuff in us, thoughts, opinions, points of view, interpretation of past experiences. Until the person has some kind of reflection, they actually think that content is who they are. Well, my grandmother was, so I am, and, this runs in my family, and, that's just content. It's not who you are. But once you realize that you're not that content, you're waking up from the intoxicated sleep. And now you're being sourced from within rather than from without.
You said something very critical in the opening. You talked about it's an inner game, and I knew that my external circumstances in 1994, if I pick a year, I could pick 92, I could pick 97, because there was a period of time. There wasn't a moment; it was a period of time. Yeah. But in 1994, if I pick a moment, I was broke and broken, and I knew that being broke was easier than being broken. Being broke, I just need to go find out how to make money. Being broken, I need to find the willpower and the desire to get up and the belief in myself to tell someone I was worthy of being paid. That was the hardest journey. And I had my son in 1994, which it was a combination of the most beautiful time in my life and the lowest point in my life, because it was the time that I had something outside of me, my child, something that I saw my heart for the first time outside of my chest.
Yeah.
And I was willing to kill away my ego or my she-go for this child. And I had to, 8 months after he was born, when I had to go get on government's assistance. Yeah. And I had to stand in the line and ask someone to help me pay my bills and to help me feed my child. And it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life, because I was very independent. I'd been working since I was 14. And at 28, I hit a place that I didn't know was rock bottom, until I kept feeling something on my back going, I think that's the bottom, through circumstances,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And one of those circumstances was when he was 8 months old. I ran out of Pampers, and I went to the ATM to get $20 out to get my son Jelani Pampers, and it said insufficient funds. And I was just saying the other day, I was delivering a sermon at a church, and I said, I was interviewed 155 times in a 5-month period. Because I was the first woman in the self-development industry to get paid $1 million to write one book. And it just created a lot of buzz, and I'm very grateful for it. And everyone kept asking me the same question: what did you do? What did you do? What was the moment? What was the moment? And everyone was looking for a moment. So I started looking for a moment, like, what was the moment? Because it wasn't a moment. But if I had to give it a moment, I said to a lot of people that interviewed me, I said, listen, I don't know if you remember that thing that made you decide, but I remember that thing that made me decide. It said $11.42. That I looked at that balance, and it was at 7-Eleven. I'll never forget. That's how broken my life was. I was banking at 7-Eleven. I was just going to the ATM, paying all the extra charges, because I didn't even want to go to the bank. Yeah. I knew I had some NSF checks there, so just everything was in chaos. And I saw 1142, and I didn't know at the time that was my moment. Yeah. But when I look back at it, because everyone kept asking me, what was the moment? The thing that comes in my head was 1142, and then what happened after that? I had to wrap my son Jelani in a series of towels.
Wow.
For 2 days. And, you know, someone asked me on another occasion, because every time I tell the story, tears come up. And they said, you've told the story so much. Do you ever just like make the tears come up to make the moment more important? I said, no, I'm a mama.
Yeah.
Every time I tell the story, I'm a mama who had to wrap her son in a towel for 2 days. I don't get excited about telling the story, but I owe you the story. Yeah. Because you see public company. I run a multi-million-dollar business. I travel the world. I inspire people. I live a first-class life. But you want to know, more importantly, how did I get there and what was the inspiration? 1142. It was my moment, and I didn't know how to get out of there. It didn't happen overnight when I decided I'm done. There was the ceiling didn't open up and lights didn't come down and angels singing and all of a sudden everything got great. No, nothing changed in my life but my mind. I was bankrupt, and I love to use the word bankrupt, because bankrupt means there ain't nothing left. Yeah. I'm done with this version. I'm ready to press reset. I was bankrupt with being broken. So I began to search. I became an explorer. I mean, and I wasn't in school, I was a C average student. I never got above a C plus. I wasn't extraordinary in anything except for track. I just gotta say, I was state champion for the record. I held the 330 low hurdle records for 18 years at my high school. I'm just gonna say, but academically, I didn't surpass anything other than average. Academically, I struggled for 12 years in school. I was considered right above special ed. I found out in my 20s that it was primarily because I'm severely dyslexic. Wow. But I didn't know now I use my dyslexia for my advantage. Yeah. I teach holistically. Yes. I go both directions when I teach, right? But then I didn't know. And so 1142, wrapping my son in Pampers and towels until I can afford to buy him Pampers was my moment. And then I became an explorer of information. I knew that if my external circumstance was going to change, I had to learn what I didn't know. I had to learn what I didn't know, because I was already using everything I knew, and what I knew was getting me what I was receiving. So apparently people must know something I don't know. And I just literally, someone who didn't, the last time I took an English class, I got a fail. The last time I took a speech class, I got a D-. And my English teacher told me I was the weakest writer she had ever met in her entire life, in front of the entire class, in front of the entire class. And my speech teacher said, Ms. Nichols, quote unquote, I recommend that you never speak in public, that you get a desk job. I kid you not. I kid you not. I kid you not.
Crazy.
So I had no confirmation of who I could become. Other than my mom and my dad. And they were just like, look, have a good life and don't struggle too much. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you can have everything. It was just don't struggle too much. And when I told my dad I want to be a motivational speaker, he was like, well, what is that? Is that a real job? Does that come with benefits? You get vacation? Can you feed your baby on that? Like it wasn't even a created environment. Now it is. Now it's getting hot. It's popular. But it didn't come with any structure. And so I was bankrupt in who I had become. So I was willing to reinvent Lisa. I was willing to kill away any part of Lisa that was going to hold me back from being the woman that I hadn't even met yet. Now, that's a big statement, because when you kill away, that means you have to sign up for being in constant disruption for a very long time. And you also have to sign up to walk by yourself for a very long time, possibly. You know, and so I was okay with that. I was okay with that. It was scary, but I knew that I could not sentence myself and my son to a future that looked and resembled this. So I got a glimpse in a very real way at 7/11, 11/42, of the life I wasn't willing to live and the future I wasn't willing to repeat. So all I kept looking for are new experiences that didn't repeat this, new experiences that didn't look like this. And the further away from what I knew I could get, and I wasn't physically away, I was still living in Inglewood. You know, I was still driving down Martin Luther King Boulevard, Inglewood, and I'm still driving my same little Citation. I had a car that was so old, it didn't have two seats. It had the one seat. Remember them old cars that had the one seat?
We drove one of them too.
My grandmother had the car, and it was a hand-me-down. I was grateful for it. And, you know, I couldn't turn left. And when I turned left, it got stuck, and then it came unstuck, and then it was dangerous, everything on my left side, because the car would swerve. And I was okay with that. I was going to drive that bucket to my future. If I needed to. I was okay with disrupting everything for the sake of something unfamiliar, an unfamiliar possibility. Now, I want to be clear. I wasn't running from my past. I bring it with me. That's how you know. You know about it in my books. You know about when I'm on stage. I'm okay. I own all Lisa, every single aspect of Lisa. 8 months after that moment, my son's father went to prison. And my son is 23, and my son's father is still in prison today. And I had the journey of pulling the blessing out of that, and understanding what was that about, and finding forgiveness in my heart, you know, and not using that as a crutch, you know. And so I had all these beautiful gifts that came wrapped in sandpaper. I had beautiful gifts that came wrapped in sandpaper. And some took me a month to understand, and some took me 10 years to get to the gift, because the sandpaper was so thick, you know. And so that's who I am.
This is just, there's certain things, I've heard some of your story before, obviously, but there's certain things that you just expressed that it's so interesting, because I do the same exact thing. You know, oftentimes we think there's this moment when something magical happens, but it's a process. And you actually did the thing that I do, which is, I've never heard anybody else do this, but I was diagnosed with this so-called incurable condition with my spine when I was 20 years old. And that was really my rock bottom. And, you know, I proceeded to gain a lot of weight and dabble into depression and just really losing a sense of purpose, because my identity was like, I'm going to complete school, I'm going to be successful, and now I lost everything, even the ability to pay my own bills. And when I finally decided to get well, which is the key, and so many people look past that, it's mostly like, I'll give this a try, we'll see what happens, I wish this would change. But I really decided that no matter what, I'm going to get well.
You had certainty.
Exactly. And that happened instantly, but the process, and it's not like the clouds parted.
Right.
You did
Angels sang, right.
That's what I do when I'm telling my story. And, you know, unicorns didn't come out, none of that. But the awakening process happened. And it was, I just asked my wife recently, who's happens to be in the studio here today. So look, it's so good. I asked her when we first met, did I tell you my story? And she was like, no, you didn't. It was just kind of like, you told me pieces, like, you know, this thing happened and, you know, you started to do this. But the story was still unfolding. And it
Yes.
wasn't until I met her and then several years after when I actually saw, that's when the transformation took
Yeah.
place. So I love that you can, and also bringing the past with you. It's not
Yeah.
like you cut ties
Right,
and,
right,
it's who you are.
I need that.
Yeah.
That's the soil that this grew from. Lisa grew from that soil.
Yeah. Love that. One of the things that I'm also hearing in the story is something that we often do, which you made a decision to follow a path to find happiness and to find success.
Yes.
But so many of us postpone happiness.
Right.
Right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We wait for a moment in time. Something has to happen in order for us to be happy. And to me, happy isn't something that you go and find. You can't Google download happy. Happy grows from you. Happy grows from a moment. And happiness isn't something you arrive at, and it's a destination that you stay at. Happiness is something that you seek to evoke and emanate and grow and experience and touch as much as possible, and you're willing to leave it to revisit it. Happiness comes in freedom. See, whenever something is rigid and it has to stay, then you just left happiness because now you have to stay at happiness. Happiness is a place that you move in and out of. It expands and it contracts with you. Happiness is something you can measure. I always say I'm as happy when I look at my child. I'm as happy as his saddest day sometimes because he's my heart outside of me. And so then I detach from him. I let him define his happiness and I watch, but there's never a moment I'm not connected to my child. And so if he's going through a dark part, there's a part of me that is always with him, so, and happiness is not something that someone else can gift you. Happiness is not something your wife can give you. Happiness is something your wife can celebrate and elevate with you. Your children can celebrate and elevate with you. Happiness is something that you sit and you look at, you touch, you breathe. Happiness is something you take a step away from and you look over there and say, what makes me happy? I just spent 32 days in Barcelona. You had to wait till I came back from Barcelona to make this happen. And I went to Barcelona for to put my life in 3 buckets. To put my life in, the first bucket was, this makes me really happy and I want to live like I choose it. You know how you can get to a place where things are coasting? I don't want to coast. If I'm madly in love with the time that I spend with my grandmother, then I want to be madly in love with it when I see my grandma. So last night, before getting on the plane and coming to you, I was in the living room dancing with my grandmother. I put on some of her favorite songs. You would be surprised. My grandmother loves Tupac, India.Arie, and Alicia Keys. I don't understand it.
Hey,
but amen.
no judgment zone.
Right.
Go ahead,
My
Grandma.
grandmother, she was like, which one you gonna put on, baby? I haven't heard Tupac in a while.
I'm a straight rider.
Right. Exactly. So and I just danced with her in the living room because that just brings a sense of joy I can't explain. I can't explain what dancing with my grandmother does for me. And the second bucket, so the first bucket is to choose what I want in my life, what I love in my life, and then to re-choose it powerfully and to let it be seen in evidence of how I show up with it, that I chose it and I choose it versus just coasting. The second bucket that I put my life in Barcelona was, I choose this, but it needs modification. It needs modification. Like, I love it, but it needs modification because I'm tolerating some things in this experience that I would be happier if I didn't tolerate. But I want it. I just need modifications. I need some things to shift. I need some experiences in this experience to shift. And then the third bucket was, I choose to release it. That our time is complete. The experience of living in overwhelm, the experience of saying yes when I want to say no, the experience of wanting to be liked and loved by everybody, the experience of opening my doors to everyone who knocks on the door and says, I need to come in. The owning my no so that my yes can become more valuable. The experience of some people in my life, that our season is complete. Like I put my entire life in 3 areas. I choose you, and I want to live like I chose you. I choose you, but I need to adjust this experience so it can feel better for the both of us, at least for me. I don't know how you're doing it, but I need it to feel better. And then I choose to release this. Behaviors, thoughts, actions, and people. So I spent 32 days in Barcelona having that experience so that I can keep revisiting happy and stay in and live, and not expecting happiness to always be there as prevalent as those moments when I'm dancing with my grandmother.
Right.
And to allow it to be fluid and flexible in my life, and to allow happiness to move away from me at times so I can honor it and own it more.
Yeah.
And not to expect and assume
It makes so much sense. I think that it's kind of ingrained in our culture because of movies and things like that. We have these very romantic ideas of,
Oh, yeah.
for example, like the Jerry Maguire, "You complete me."
Yes,
You know,
yes,
when we
yes.
have two incomplete people getting together,
Right.
it's going to be some serious
Right,
drama.
right, right,
You
right.
know, and not even putting that on another person and
right,
understanding
right.
that we're responsible for our own
Right,
happiness.
right.
And I
That we
love,
won't find perfection. You said
yeah,
it earlier. I
exactly.
loved
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
We won't ever find perfection. And it's a false hope that always leaves you lacking something. But if you can find and discover how to perfectly work with your imperfection. And what I've done, in some days better than most, and other days not, is I've learned how to dance inside my imperfection.
I like that.
And so
I
I
like
love
that.
when you open with that. I loved it. I was like, yeah, because then it allows us to be more gracious with ourselves.
Yeah. I love those three buckets. It reminded me of the Bozo show. Do you remember that? It
Yes.
was like the little game at the end. I was like, I'm gonna get on there one day. It
And
was
I'm
like
gonna get
5.
the ball in the bucket.
Yeah,
Right.
and then the show, of course, was canceled shortly thereafter. But thinking of those three buckets, we've been talking a lot, and I've brought on some of the top people in the world just on exercising your no muscle.
Yes.
Right. So we talked with James Altucher, who wrote
Yes.
the book The Power of No instead of The
Yes.
Power of Now, and also Michael Hyatt, and talking about having those standards, because the reality is, I think one of our big issues is that we think we have more time than we do. You know, and to really take advantage of our life and this human experience, and to have our standards, you know,
Yes.
for what we're willing to take on, for what we're willing to accept, and for, you know, where we're headed. And it's not that we don't love those situations, those people, the environment. You know, it's still gratitude there, but you can't take everybody with you as well, and everybody doesn't want to come.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
I used to have this kind of mentality of like, we're not leaving till everybody's on the
Right.
bus.
I'm gonna help everybody. I'm gonna help you help yourself. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is when you look at why we do what we do. Like, I love the study of the human mind. I love the study of behavior. Right. And when we say yes, when we want to say no, when our ego flexes, when it comes from 4 areas is what I've reduced, and when you realize that these 4 areas are false, and they're just false illusions that you make real, then you operate differently. So whenever my students step on my campus, I say, listen, it's gonna take you years to get to here, but let's talk about where we want to get to. I want to get to a place where you have nothing to prove, you have nothing to protect, you have nothing to hide, and you have nothing to defend. Now, each one of those are big, because we live in proving that we're smart enough, proving that we're good enough. Women, we want to prove that we're equal to men. Blacks want to prove that we're just as smart as that white guy. I mean, it goes across cultural lines, it goes across geographical lines, it goes across economic lines. We live in proving. But if you can begin and just start now, I don't know when you'll get there, but start now, living like you have nothing to prove. There's an elevated sense of freedom. Then, if you can live like you have nothing to hide, like there are no secrets, there are no skeletons in my closet, because I opened the closet door and I dragged them all out and I brought them with me, because when you get me, you get that, and I'm whole and complete with who I am. Like, I've fallen in love with the darkest part of myself. And when you can fall in love with the darkest part of yourself, your insecurities, your need to be loved, your need to be approved, your need to be embraced, your lack of clarity, your dyslexia, if you can fall in love with the darkest part of yourself and bring him or her with you into every experience, not wearing it, not putting it out in front of you, but just, by the way, I went on a date once, and the first part of the day I said, so let me tell you all the stuff I don't want you to find out about me, so I can not try to hide all that, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And then, then he fell in love. Then I had to figure that out, because I wasn't in love. So, but if you can bring that with you, so there's nothing to hide. The third is there's nothing to protect. There's nothing to protect. There's no image to protect. Now that my brand is, a global brand, there's always this conversation of brand management. And I go, let me always be a part of that conversation with my PR rep, with my manager. Let me be a part, because my version of brand protection and your idea of brand protection might be different. And I'm committed to helping you see what's important to me, because brand protection is not about hiding. Brand protection is not about defending. Brand protection is about standing in my authentic truth at all times. So I have some health things. I hope we'll talk about that. I've had some health transition, and That was a big deal conversation in my camp. Like, how are you going to tell people and what's going to happen? And I was like, hold on. The truth is sexy.
Yes.
The truth is so sexy. Oh my God. I'm so attracted to someone who says, so listen, here are my issues. Now, if you can work with that, we're cool. Like, like if you want, like, don't try to hide them. Just tell me what we're working with. And so nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to hide, and nothing to defend. There's nothing to defend.
It sounds like a tough one.
It is.
Yeah.
Because our natural ego wants to defend. Our ego will rise up and say, I got this. And it's your humanity and your humility and your servant leadership that will say, hold on, I'll take care of this.
Yeah.
And when you can apologize and fall on the sword on behalf of your brother or your sister, when you can love the perceivingly unlovable, when you can love the perceivingly unlovable, and you can forgive the perceivingly unforgivable, that society will give you permission to not forgive, you forgive it anyway. That society will tell you, you don't have to love that, you love it anyway. And you don't just love and forgive, you love and forgive out loud. That's when you have an elevated sense of freedom. And that's when you become a change agent. And your life has a timeline, but your legacy doesn't.
Oh, I love that. Infinite.
I love people, first of all. And then I primarily, when you're in service, when you understand the nature of reality, the nature of the interconnectedness between people, between each and every one of us, you're here for each other, So I live to be in service, and so that connects me to people. Now I know a lot of people who are in service, but they don't necessarily like people, so they have a hard job.
Yeah. I
have an easy job because I like people, and I like being of service. Helping motivate, inspire, encourage, activate. It's all a part of who I am. So.
Yeah. So what about the folks, we were just talking about this too, that are in service, but they don't want to be in service? Can you work on that too? Because I think you just mentioned it, that there's an interconnectedness that I don't think we realize.
Right. Well, when you have to do something you don't like doing it, then you have to pray to fall in love with what you don't like to do. And that also gives you a hedge in success, because being successful, there are things you don't like to do. In developing a discipline around it. So you have to, establish an intention to really fall in love with the things you don't like to do. Just like you have to fall in love with eating certain vegetables. You can't have an immature taste bud your whole life and eat candy. You have to eat spinach. I've grown to like beets. You have to. So in that same way, there are things we may not have a proclivity towards. So we have to ask, let me fall in love with this part. Yeah. Until what you don't like to do becomes something that you start to like, and then it becomes really cool.
Yeah, but you just said a dirty word in there. You said discipline.
Yeah.
So even when I hear it, there's a little tinge of like, that sounds very difficult.
Well, when you look at the word disciple, the disciple comes from a word that means you're in love with something. So if you're a disciple of something, you're a disciple of the martial arts, you're a disciple of music, disciple of the piano, you actually love the music. You actually love the outcome. So when you when you become a disciple, discipline becomes a blisscipline, a word I coined many years ago. And you actually, it's not like, I gotta do this, I don't want to do it, but I gotta do it. You actually start falling in love with the outcome of what you're doing in that moment. So if it's martial arts, if it's exercise, if it's nutrition, eventually the outcome of the discipline that has become the discipline, you actually dig it. You look at anybody who's working on themselves, and once they start to see the results of their work, something happens inside. They get excited about the chemicals start flowing in their body. Neurons start firing, the endorphin starts kicking in. It's like, yeah, this is tough right now to lift this weight. This is tough right now to do whatever it is I'm called to do, but I'm so connected to the outcome that the discipline has now become a blisscipline. I'm in the bliss. The bliss chemicals are flowing, So yeah, I think in our culture, discipline has become a bad word, but we have to reclaim it.
Yeah.
and take it to another level.
Yeah. And I really think that it's freedom in a sense, which is so crazy, you know, like I would express this with my daughter who, you know, just growing up in this culture is just like, I want these things, you know, I want all this stuff that I see. But understanding that creating the structure and the discipline, it will enable you to get those things versus if you get them and you don't really have the discipline and structure, you find creative ways to lose them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, dynamic structure gives you more freedom. It's like learning any art. You've learned the fundamentals, and you develop a level of discipline around those fundamentals, and then you have freedom. You know, I always remember a number of years ago when Nate Archibald was playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And was it Nate Archibald? No, it was the other guard from the New York Knicks. What's his name? It'll come to me in a second. But anyway, he practiced all the time, dribbling. He had a level of discipline. And it was toward the end of the game, and he was coming down the court, time was running out, and he got through 3 men and did some kind of weird move and put the basketball in. Mm. And they asked him, how did he know to do that move? He says, I didn't. If I would have known what I was going to do, they would have been able to stop me. Mm. But all the years of discipline allowed for freedom to happen in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, the freedom for him to go around his backspin and put it in. So the discipline and the fundamental created freedom, spontaneous goodness, beyond his thought. He went into the zone. But you can't go there unless you have a certain level of discipline that provides the freedom.
Yeah, wow. One of the disciplines that is obviously a big part of your life and also what you've shared with so many people, millions of people, is meditation.
Yeah.
And I recently had my mother-in-law on the show, which she was like literally the most requested guest. You know,
Your mother-in-law?
Yes. So we've had
Oh, that's
on,
right. You told me about her.
You know, Hall of Famers, you know, Ozzie Smith and Jackie Joyner Kersee and Dr. Oz and all these amazing people. But she was the most requested person because she's had the biggest impact on me. And when I first met her, my wife was like, listen, they're really weird. Just, you know, we'll go in, go out, you know. And I walked in the house, and there was grass growing in the house. And I'd never seen this before. It was wheatgrass.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
I
was like, what is this? Like, what's up with your mom? I've never seen grass indoors. Mm-hmm. And within, I think it was maybe the second or third conversation, she told me that if she could give everybody in the world one thing, it would be meditation. Yeah. And I literally had the thought, give me $1 million. Like, why would she even say that, you know, until she taught me meditation. And that's when I woke up, you know. And from that moment, and I'm a very analytical person, which everybody knows on this show, mm-hmm. very science-minded. And so she gave me a little background on like how this is working. And I was like, okay, I'll suspend my disbelief and participate. And after the meditation, I realized that I hadn't really had a conscious thought my entire life. Like I was just, you know, I was just existing, mm-hmm. and all this stuff was happening. But now I could see it,
right?
You know, and it was just, and it took years to really kind of recalibrate my life. Now seeing things so differently, you know.
Right.
And but this is something you've taught to so many people as a discipline, an important discipline. And so for you, why is meditation as a tool, as a discipline, is it so important today, especially?
Yeah, it's very important today. It's interesting you're asking this because I just flew in from Denver yesterday. I was participating in America Meditates, and people from all over the world gathered, and they were in a number, hundreds of cities live stream as we were teaching about meditation and mental health. There was Tim Ryan and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar was putting it on, and Marianne Williamson, a number of people, because there's a correlation between meditation and the transcending of mental illness. So meditation, if we describe what meditation is, it's paying undistractable attention to reality, to the eternal, to that which is real. And you learn to have dominion, as you were just talking, you're having dominion over your attention so that you can place your attention where you want it to be. So in meditation, you're paying attention. You can use the breath, you can use a mantra, however you want to do it, but ultimately you're paying attention to that which is changeless. Now, most people suffer from an attention deficit disorder and an intention deficit disorder. So their mind is all over the place. Their mind has been hijacked by worry, fear, anxiety, anxiousness, beliefs that aren't true. And then their life becomes they start to experience those thoughts and those perceptions. So there are different aspects to meditation. One aspect is there's a cleansing to it. There's those thoughts, they surface so that you can look at them. Is this true? Is this not true? You can embrace, help dismantle, transmute them. And then there's periods of meditation where you have real bona fide insights. You actually know something that you either formerly just believed, or maybe you didn't even know this part of reality even existed. So there's meditation where you have insights, and there's meditation where you're clearing things. But the average person's mind is hijacked by the world, the media, social media. They're thinking thoughts that don't even belong to them. They think they're thinking those thoughts, but their mind is obtaining those thoughts from the sea of mental garbage. So in meditation, you're purifying your awareness so that you can actually see the world as it really is, not just as it's being projected to you. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's very important.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said intention deficit disorder.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Most people, again, until they live with a level of deliberateness in their life, they suffer from an intention deficit disorder. They wake up and they're mainly reacting to circumstances. They're living as a reaction to things that are going on in the world, but they don't have an intention, a driving intention for their own life. So at the end of the day, they've simply just managed their reactions to whatever's going on, rather than establishing an intention to be your best self, an intention to improve in an area of your life. Now, when you have intention, now the universe, through its laws, can begin to help you with that intention. But if you don't have any intention, you're just kind of buffeted around on the ocean of life, wondering why you're not going anywhere. So I teach people to make sure you establish an intention. Same thing in meditation. We have a point in meditation where you actually establish an intention. Why am I meditating?
Yeah.
I'm meditating to have a realization of my oneness with life, to activate wisdom, to activate intelligence, to become conscious that I'm supported. I mean, you can have whatever intention you want, but to live an unintentional life, you're just going to go around in circles.
That just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Even starting, it's just like, I think a lot of us, if we're not trained in the way that you were discussing with meditation, just let's see what happens,
right?
Versus just let's set an intention. It's just like when we set out this door, where are you going,
right?
To set that intention. That's powerful. I never really.
It's necessary because the world of phenomena is swirling. We're going to go outside in a minute and we're going to read a news item about some crazy thing that's happening, and it can just suck our attention, and then we're not going where we need to go because we're caught up in the swirl of something else, you see. So intentional living is where we want to bring people to an intention. Yeah. Now, what happens is, by law, I'm talking about mental law, when you establish an intention, you start intention is directional. It's like, I want to walk in that direction. So what happens is, by law, the mental laws start to assist you in walking in that direction. Now, you may not get exactly where you think you want to get. It might even be better.
Right.
Things may open up that you don't even know exist yet because you've established an intention. Whereas rather than just sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen, that's a different kind of waiting. You establish an intention, then you wait for wisdom, guidance, direction. But just to wait around and see what's going to happen with your life, that's foolishness.
Yeah. And so this is obviously a part of the life visioning process. And so I got that audio program of yours. When did it come out? It was about 10 years ago?
Probably.
Yeah. It's probably right shortly after that. It's I'm thinking maybe around 2010.
And people still get it. I mean, it's really, I meet people now who just got it. Yeah. And they're very enthused about it,
it was so remarkable. And we talked about this when we were hanging out in Portugal, which is crazy to even say.
Right.
But I just did it. I applied it. And that's one of the things that makes me different, you know? And then not that we all have this capacity, but so many of us, like, we'll get these things, but we don't just do the thing. You know, we'll get different programs, buy different books, we'll hear different things, but just applying the principles, you know, led to moments like this, you know,
Right.
because I didn't know, all I knew is that I wanted to help people. I was passionate about health and nutrition. And I was, you know, I was already helping folks in my little local sphere, but I knew that there was a bigger thing, a bigger mission. I didn't know what it looks like. I didn't know what a podcast was, but I
Right.
set that intention. And you know what I'm saying?
No, that was outside of your paradigm at that time.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like you get to be surprised.
Yeah.
You establish an intention, and then you're surprised. You didn't know a podcast existed.
Yeah.
You didn't know you'd be moving to Los Angeles. You didn't know a lot of things, but all those things existed. But the moment you establish intention, then that which already existed could come into your sphere. Yeah, that's very powerful. Again, there are people, you know, you've heard the old statement from the Bible that says, without vision, the people perish. If you don't have an intention or a vision for your life, you're just going in circles. You're just going in circles. Now, you said something, let me just say this one thing, because you said you applied it. Now, people say to me sometimes, you know, I understand the teachings. I've read your books. I've seen you on the live stream. You know, what's the advanced teachings? And I say, beginning is theory, advanced is practice. So you practiced. Most people don't do that. They're not going to stick with the thing long enough to actually see the fruits of it. Like you say, they may read the book, they may hear a lecture, they may get excited for a moment, but to actually, day by day by day, actually practice, that's where the change is.
Yeah, that's powerful. And even just going back to the analogy with the basketball player,
Right.
you know, it's just building those muscles and kind of a skill set,
Right.
in a sense. And so what makes life visioning different from goal setting?
It's you know, I break the reality into 4 stages. First stage is is the victim stage. We think something is doing something to us. Second stage is the stage where you learn how to manifest, and that's where you learn goal setting. You learn visualization, the creative use of your imagination. You take your imagination back where it's been hijacked. You start to realize that you're being supported by a progressively friendly universe. But then the next level is visioning. Visioning is what you did, is saying in substance that there's something within me. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm open and receptive to it guiding me. So I make myself receptive to that which has been placed within me, only within me, to come forward and articulate itself. So I'm asking a question. Goal setting and visualizing is, I know what I want. I want this. I'm going to visualize it. This is my goal. I'm going to do A, B, and C, and D to get to the goal. Now, that's beautiful. It's wonderful. But many times people get to their goals and they still feel empty. And they feel like, okay, I've done this, I've done that, I have all these things, but I'm not happy yet. So that means they haven't tapped into their real, what is called meant to be. It's like there's a should be and there's a meant to be. Should be is from outside sources.
Yeah.
You should do this. Meant to be is there's something within you that only you can do, the way you can do it. And so visioning brings you to your meant to beism. It's like a rose is not going to be an avocado tree. You know, an oak tree is not going to be a magnolia. You know, you're going to be you, I'm going to be me. So there's something about me that I'm trying to set free. So in visioning, I'm asking a question, ultimately. You know, what within me is trying to emerge? What gift am I to give? What blessing am I to bestow upon the world? And if you ask those questions sincerely, you start to be guided in a language and in a way that you can understand, and then you start to walk in that direction. And then there are things, like you were saying, you don't even know that even exist. They're outside of your experience, but they start to come into your experience by asking the right question, you see.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. But however, the fundamentals of goal setting and visualization are very important. That's the foundation. Then you leap from that into visioning. Yeah.
Wow, it's so interesting because for me, just having access to that, it's kind of like an inner technology. And I would even say some of the statements that you're saying, just like, because I was concerned about missing things, you know, because I know there's so many, like it's happening all the time, these crazy synchronicities, right?
Right.
And so I would ask, like, let me see this in a way that I can understand very clearly, you know? And so all these little small things, and sometimes you don't know what they're going to lead to,
Right.
but they all have a process, a part of the process. And so even how the show started, because I was speaking at that point, I was speaking at an event in Las Vegas, which I had no business being there. I mean, you know, I could barely afford a plane ticket, but I was like helping people in my local area. I got invited out to do it. And after I came off stage, this couple came over to me and they were like, you know, they have 1 million unique visitors for their website a month. I had about 100, you know, and I was like, but I'm gonna, you know, reach all these people. And I didn't see how it would happen. And they told me that they had started this podcast and they were looking for somebody to be the face of it, you know? And I was like, I'm a face, you know? Right. But they were just like, that was amazing. We think that you would be great for this. And then they told me about what they had going on. I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. But in my mind, I'm like, what the hell is a podcast? Because I didn't even know what it was, right?
I love it.
And so I figured it out later, right?
But you said yes.
Yes, I said yes. When it presented itself, I said yes. And so you mentioned that there's these 4 stages. We got to talk more about this because that victim stage, I definitely lived that. That was my reality before I learned meditation.
Right.
You know, like things were just happening to me. Everything in the world was happening to me. Can we talk about those 4 stages a little bit?
Sure. It's to us, by us, through us, and as us. First stage, something is happening to us. You know, there's something out there that's out to get us. There's a God, there's a devil, there's astrology. You know, there's all these things that are determining our destiny. Our parents, how we were raised, our experiences become excuses. And then stage 2, we actually learn we learn the laws of manifestation. We learn creative visualization, creative imagination, right speech, right conversation, hanging out with the right kind of people that are going in the direction you want to go in. You learn basic fundamentals of manifestation. And now to us, not only becomes by us, but it becomes for us, meaning everything that's happened to us is actually pushing us towards a lesson, to learn something. So what looks like is happening to me, after a while it's transmuted into for me. So that negative thing that happened actually is making me learn compassion, wisdom, intelligence, forgiveness, integrity. So if something terrible has happened to you, you can let it knock you down, but ultimately it can be for you. And you can say, because that thing happened to me when I was a child, I have way more compassion today. I have way more strength, you see. So in the manifestation stage, we learn that. And then we start to segue into stage 3, which is through us, meaning life on its own terms is wonderful. Life is alive. Life is teeming with itself. Life never dies. Life is always expressing. And so life starts to operate through us. That's the level of flow or the zone. I call it flow motion, where you've done your work, you've trained, you've prepared, but then something takes over. And beyond what you can prepare yourself for, something is just operating through. You've seen orators, you've seen poets, you've seen athletes, you've seen doctors, you've seen surgeons. Something takes them over. That's stage 3. But it's built upon the structure that they've created in stage 2. So then there's stage 4, which is as us, with a sense of separation between you and life. Now, life has a lot of names. People call it God, great God of the universe. I happen to call it limitless love intelligence everywhere. You start to realize that you are an emanation of this life. You're not separate. God isn't over there. Life isn't over there and you're over here. Because if life is omnipresent, that means life has to be right here, whatever name you want to call it. Yeah. And you start to have pinprick moments where you realize, I'm at one with this. I'm not separate, you see. And that may last a nanosecond, or it may last an hour, or it may last days. But little by little by little, your filters are cleansed, and you live at these higher octaves for longer periods of time. Now, the 4 stages are not linear. You know, they move in cycles, meaning in one area of your life, you might feel victimized. But in another area of your life, you may feel like a master.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like a linear stair step kind of thing, but you're constantly growing so that more and more parts of your life come under the authority of this is for me, this is by me, this is through me, and there are moments of as me, you see. Yeah. It's a growing edge.
Yeah.
Synonymous with I am worthy. Synonymous with I am worthy, right? Followed by I give myself permission. I can tell you the whole chain. I deserve, I am worthy. I give myself permission, right? In spite of my previous choices, I still have the right. I still deserve. So you got to revisit deserve and revisit worthy and revisit permission. It's not a one and done. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, Shawn, is that they do the work, they give themselves permission, they grow, they get to another level, they fall, something happens, or the zeros get big enough, and all of a sudden you forget you got to go back to I deserve. You got to go back to I'm worthy. You got to go back to I give myself permission. So everything I gave myself permission for 5 years ago, it's already done. I'm working this year to give myself permission to have a movie about my life, to write a book, right. Yeah. It's like, okay, hold on. I am worthy. I am worthy. You do all the work again. You do all the work again. When I moved here, I moved to the Bahamas in January of 2020. Do you know that I spent 2 weeks looking at the beach, but I wouldn't go over to the sand? Shawn, I was nervous. I was like, I live here. Okay, that's mine. I had given myself permission to move to the Bahamas, did that. Then I had to give myself permission to live 11 steps from the water and have access to it on it. It was too mind-blowing to me. I had to sit. I didn't go to the beach. I went to my backyard. So I couldn't see the beach, and I went and I collected the evidence that I'm a good steward of an amazing, breathtaking life like this. I collect the evidence that I'm a good steward of an amazing, breathtaking life like this. I'm a good steward of the love that I found. I'm a good steward of him loving me for a lifetime. I'm a good steward to be healthy and fit. I'm a good steward to be the model of transformed health. I'm a good steward. I had to tell myself that I give myself permission to talk about health. You know my very deliciously messy, chaotic health background. With that messy, chaotic, tumultuous health background, I just finished 21 days of Halls of Fitness, the first 21-day challenge I ever led. And oh, by the way, brother, the very first video I looked at of someone talking about fitness to the camera was yours.
Come on.
I'm gonna tell you, you were in the gym with a beautiful tall woman with short black hair, and she was doing a little workout, and you were showing how to. I watched you. I know exactly because I trust you, and I looked at you, and I said, I want to know how to talk about fitness, and I talk about fitness from a place of a woman who found her fitness, not from a fitness expert. And so I touch people in their soul because I say, listen, I was 220 pounds. I was morbidly obese. I had severe sleep apnea, and I had 6 blood transfusions in 3 years. I was a walking hot mess. And I'm not saying it's perfect now, but it's a whole lot better. And so let's move to our greater later together, right? That's my whole conversation about fitness. And so I had to give myself permission to be on that beach and to talk about fitness. And so we're all in levels of permission. We're all in levels of deservingness, levels of worthy. It's a constant evolution. I always say the beauty is you've never arrived. You're still on the journey. I done got myself warmed up, y'all. I'm just telling y'all. I get myself all warmed up by this conversation.
This episode should be called Chill Factor because I got the chills so many times. I love it so much.
And can I say this, in relationships, that's the biggest place where we start compromising what we deserve forward. I was the main person to do it because we've made decisions. We hold ourselves hostage to the decisions we've made. And what you have to remember is you made the decisions you made based on what you knew then. You still deserve breathtaking, lifetime, like everlasting love. Like that's the biggest area that I coach people in, and the biggest area where they compromise their worthiness. They'll make millions, but do I deserve long-lasting, forever kind of love, passionate love? And it's as if we're keeping score versus keeping track.
Come on. Come on. Break that down for me, because this is a big part of our lives. I think that this is the number one decision that we make on a practical sense, like in the world out here, is who we choose to spend our time with, specifically who we choose to spend our life with.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks are looking for that. How do we find that? How do we find that love? How do we find that partner?
Yes. So number one, recognize if you're keeping score or you're keeping track. Keeping score, let me tell you the distinction. Keeping score is collecting evidence on why it won't work in your future. And many people are making decisions about their future, business, relationship, friendship, health and wellness, based on keeping score. They're collecting evidence on why it won't work, why it's hard. I might get hurt. I've tried diets before and they didn't work. So you're collecting evidence on why it won't work. Keeping track, notice this distinction, super important to notice this distinction. Keeping score is collecting evidence on why it won't work. Keeping track is taking notes of what path landed you where. It's just what path landed you where. When I eat at night after 10, I have a harder time losing weight or releasing weight. When I go to sleep after midnight, this is me all the time. I went to bed early last night. I was happy because when I go to bed after midnight, it impacts how I spring into my next day. Now, I used to stay up late at night because it was quiet and my brain could think and I could write. But what I realize is when I keep track of what happens the next day, I need to get in bed earlier and just ask everyone to give me an hour of quiet time at 9 o'clock versus waiting till their sleep at midnight. That's keeping track. Keeping track is actually looking at where a path has led you in the past. In relationships, if you rush into a relationship because you feel all those endorphins and you feel the exchange, but you notice that you've done that in the past and then it ended up you didn't have a friendship. A relationship is a friendship expanded. Took me a while to learn that. Like, hello. Like, I don't care how fine they are. I don't care how sexy they are. I don't care how brilliant they are. And I don't even care how ready they are. Keeping track shows me that in order for me to have a great relationship, I have to first have a great friendship. Track only taught me that. Keeping score would say I can't trust them. They're no good. They hurt me. That's keeping score and collecting evidence on why it won't work. And so that's the distinction. And oftentimes, Shawn, most people are collecting evidence and keeping score than they are keeping track.
I want to lean into this just a little bit more. This is important. You're giving the real stuff. Yeah. Now, what do we do on a practical level? Because this is your reality now. Right now, you're a fiance. You're in the Bahamas. You got the sun-kissed skin. Hopefully, everybody's checking out the YouTube version of the show as well if you're listening on audio. But you're in fiance vibes right now.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
How do we get there? How do we get from I'm looking for the love of my life to actually manifesting? Or even if we're in a relationship right now, for example, and we're not happy, how do we get to that place of love?
Yeah. So I'm going to point out, then I'm going to come back. Okay. Make a list of everything you want in that relationship and in that person to embody, whether they're presently with you or not. Don't talk about characteristics. Characteristics are small conscious thinking. I'm going to tell you right now. He needs to be 6'6", or she needs to be. That's small conscious thinking. Think about the character. Think about the nurture. You probably have your physical preferences. That's fine. That's okay. I want you to think about the lifestyle. I want you to think about the mindset. I want you to think about the spiritual habits. I want you to think about their financial habits. I want you to think about their family commitment. Make a list of all of those things. Now listen to me. Make a list. And then become the list. Don't spend another moment thinking about them. You become the list. Because if they are the list and you're not, why should they choose you?
on.
I'm sorry, ouch.
That took a turn I wasn't expecting going that direction.
Become the list and be so busy becoming the list that you get this, become the magnet. Like, become the list and be so on fire about becoming the list. And then at some point, I hope you become on fire about becoming the list for you and not for them. And then become the magnet. I got to tell you that my fiance and I met 10 years ago. And I had made my list 12 years ago. And I met him and he was striking and he was athletic and he was charismatic and he was charming and he was really shy, really, really shy. And at the time I was working on myself. And I said, hey, you're a really nice guy, but I'm really working on, I had no idea who was in front of me. I wouldn't know for another 8 years. I'm just working on myself, but we can stay friends. He was like, okay, let's stay friends. My son was in middle school. And I'm working on myself. And this was the time I'm getting blood transfusions. I'm getting emergency hysterectomy. And I really needed to clean up my health so that I could want someone in my physical space. I needed to do that work first. Was I lonely at times? Absolutely. Did I want love? Absolutely. But I felt like I and he deserved for me to be much more comfortable with my image of my physicality than I was at that time. And so I got my head down, raising Jelani, building, motivating the masses, and taking care of Lisa Nichols. And my head's down. Now listen to this. I thought he would periodically text me. 8 years later, 2 years ago, I go into my phone and I look at his text strand because he had texted me again. He had been texting me for 8 years. This gentleman texts me every month, once a month for 8 years. Just saying hi. He was under my nose. So when I realized, oh my God, this dude's been texting me, I call him 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I said, hi, you've texted me for 8 years. He goes, yeah, I have. I said, did you like me? Do you like me? He goes, yeah, I do. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, because I want to give you the time you requested to work on yourself. You said you're working on you. So I just stayed in touch to let you know I was here. And so you have no idea. You have no idea who's waiting for you to be ready for what you want. Are you really ready for what you want? All that greatness, all that grandness, all that abundance. I said I wanted to be on Oprah 10 years before I was on Oprah. Thank God I wasn't on Oprah when I said I wanted to be on Oprah. I wasn't ready. I had to go get ready. I had to go meet the right people and ask for help. So I invite you, I implore you, trust you, develop you, invest in you, and then let the universe know I'm ready. A lot of times when you say you want or you need, it's because we believe we want someone else to complete us. Well, let me be the sister to say, it's no one else's job to complete you. It's your job to complete yourself. And then it's their job to complement your completeness.
Come on.
I'm just saying. I tell my man, I don't want you to complete me. That's my job. But I sure want you to compliment my completeness. I'm just saying.
Oh,
and so
my goodness.
That comes when you begin to pour into you. So if you're looking for love, I'm going to say, can you touch the highest level of self-love? And can you demonstrate that? And then can you love others? I wish I had a cup. Can you learn how to stop loving people from your cup and start learning how to love them from your overflow? Don't love them from your cup, love them from your saucer. Because when you can love them from your saucer, then anyone that comes near you can feel that. Can I tell you, I wish my fiance was home now. When I asked him, what made you choose me? He said, I walked through the door. Get this. I walked through the sliding door of the Pegasus Hotel in Kingston, Jamaica. You were standing in the lobby. He said, and you looked my way while you were laughing, and there was a light that came from you. He said, I passed you because I'm super shy. He's never, ever reached out to talk to a woman himself. In his words, he's paralyzingly shy. This dude is super shy. He said, I walked past you and you looked at me and you kept that smile going. He said, I got all the way around to the elevator. I stood at the elevator and I talked to myself. Marcellus, if you let this moment pass, I think you're going to regret it. There was something in that smile. He said he turned back around and he was so scared to say something to me, but it was the light in my smile. And he doesn't talk much. I mean, he's such a great guy. He's my anchor. But he says that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that for 8 years until we got together and we were really locked and loaded. He goes, something in your smile. And I didn't smile at him. I was smiling at the woman in front of me. And then he caught it because he caught my attention. And I just let him have some of my smile. So who are you sharing your light with? But first, before you share your light, how are you turning your light up? That thing right there. Some of us are dimming our light. You got the shadow. Look, I'll put the shadow over this light. You got the shadow over the light because you don't want to outshine somebody. You got the shadow over the light because the last time you shined your light, you got hurt. You got the shadow over the light because you're still getting used to your own light. When you let your light shine, someone around you who's ready for your light will notice your light and choose to stand in your light with you. That's all I'm gonna say. I know that that's not the regular go on harmony.com. And I'm saying if that's your path, no, I love your path. But still, on eHarmony or wherever you're on, you still gotta own your light. Let your light shine. Own your light, but turn your light up. Make the list, become the list.
Let's go. I've got a list for you, but I'm gonna keep it short. I cannot let you go without asking you these two things. So, number one, what you're talking about right now requires some time and energy to work on yourself, to develop that self-love and self-care. In my clinical practice, that was the number one reason people would give for not taking care of themselves, not exercising, whatever the case might be. I don't have the time. So can you speak to that? What advice can you give for folks who are in that paradigm that they don't have the time and they're seeing that as the challenge from getting from where they are to where they want to be?
I'm going to ask you a question. Now, I'm going to say this in love from a woman who spent 19 years over 210 pounds, 5 years over 220. So I don't say it from a place of judgment. I didn't even know clavicles existed until 5. I was like, clava who? Clava what? Clava where? That's this little part right here. I heard it's supposed to hold a cup of water and when you're doing good. But anyway, I'm going to ask you this when you say you don't have enough time. I'm going to say, you know, tomorrow you're going to get 24 hours in the day. You know that. You know you're not going to get 23. You know you won't get 25. So my question to you, sister, my question to you, brother, is when will you love you enough to give yourself just one of the 24? You don't run out of time. You simply allocated all your time to someone that you put in front of you. I'm going to follow it with this statement. I say it in love. You will always, as a leader, as a game changer, as a gladiator, you will always have a long line of people waiting to be served by you. You will always. People will knock down your door to get in your line. Here is my question. When will you put yourself at the front of your own line? And I say that because it took a doctor telling me. I was in Utah. My doctor called me on Zoom and said, you are morbidly obese, you're over 220 pounds, you have severe sleep apnea, and you travel over 258 days out the year. And when other people go to work to sit down to work, you go to work and get on stage and push out the little energy that you have from your sleep-deprived body. Lisa, it's not a matter of if you're going to have a heart attack. It's a matter of when will you have it and where will you be. The doctor went on to say, will you be on stage in front of your audience? Will you be in the air on a plane? Will you be at home in front of your son, Jelani? Or will you be in a hotel room by yourself? I thought she was cruel. I thought she was cruel to make me have that kind of fear. And then she followed it with this. She said, the only reason why I'm saying this to you this way is because I've sat in your audience and I've experienced your gift. And I need to disrupt you enough to be radical. And so I'm not disrupting you or poking you for the sake of doing it. It's because someone is ready to be blessed by your gift. Someone is ready to be touched by your soul. Someone's ready. And until you handle the self-care, until you prioritize you, until you move to the front of your own line the way I had to do, you won't be able to give the world all of you that you know you're to do. And my grandmother just transitioned. And my grandmother would say, baby, when you get my age, she was 92 years and 9 months when she transitioned, laid down to rest in peace. And she's resting in peace because she played full out. She said, baby, when you get my age, you're supposed to sit in your favorite rocking chair. And I bought Granny a good rocking chair, y'all. And you're supposed to share the stories of your life. She said, but baby, when you're your age, you're supposed to do one thing. Do everything in your power to make sure that the story is going to be good to share. You are protecting your future memories of yourself. Me being radical about my health, you getting radical about your health, you becoming non-negotiable about your health is about protecting your future memories about yourself. That when you sit in that rocking chair, you want to look back and say, I played full out for me first. And then I served everybody else from my overflow. That's your job. That every day, that's your job. Every day, that's your job. And allow us to witness and be the beneficiaries of you playing full out.
So what happens is, what you've described, we have our sub-personalities, our personality, all the content that it's generating that we've identified with. Every aspect of our personality we've gotten from time and experience. You know, people you associate with, things that have happened, you develop coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, all kinds of things to survive. Yeah. Okay? So what happens is when you start to contemplate reality, meditate, pray, whatever your mode is, what happens is those roles begin to melt. And as they melt, that's the challenge. It's like, I don't know who I am. I'm confused. That's called the crucifixion. That personality self that you've identified with, this is who I am, it's being crucified. And then there's a slow death. And then there's an emergence, expanded consciousness. That's called the resurrection or the rebirth. And then you're operating at higher levels of freedom. You're being free from the content flowing through. And then you get to a point there's a fork in the road, so to speak, where there's freedom and ecstasy and pleasure. And many people opt for pleasure rather than bliss. Now, if you go to bliss and freedom, you get pleasure. But if you go to pleasure, you may not get to bliss. Mm-hmm. You know how they talk about he or she is a pleasure seeker. You know, that becomes another level of addiction. I know I'm probably talking a lot here, but the idea is it is challenging. Because when your identity starts to break up and you don't know what you believe anymore, that's a good stage in the development. You know, your whole inner world is like, I used to know exactly who I was. This was my personality. This is how I handled life. Now I'm changing. You know, and then there's a greater expansion of awareness. This is all part of the practice. Of every spiritual path will say it in a different way. You know, the breakdown for the breakthrough. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I know a lot of people experience that. They might be in it right now.
Right.
And just to have that permission to know that it's a part of the process and that you are working towards something. I want to ask you this because, you know, you're one of the people who has really identified and expanded the awareness of different universal laws, like the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And there's always this set of beliefs that make it hard to accept that that's going on, mm-hmm. even though it might be the only thing going on, that what about negative things that happen? You know, how is it that I attracted this quote bad thing into my life? How can you speak to that?
I'll tell you, yeah, I will, and I'll tell you a story. I was getting ready to go on the Oprah Winfrey show again, and she comes into the green room, and she says, "I'm getting these letters from people wanting to know, why do these bad things are happening to good people, and did they attract it? Because we were speaking about The Secret and law of attraction." And she said, "Michael, I'm going to ask you that question." And then she said, "Listen, you don't have time to teach a class because you have to give it in sound bites." And then she left the room. Wow. And I'm thinking, I'm going to talk about this in sound bites? Because I sat and meditated because we're about to go live. And so what is called the windows of manifestation came into my awareness. Just went, whoop. So we go out and we're talking, and then Ms. Winfrey says, "Michael, I'm getting all these letters. Why is it that bad things happen to good people? Are they attracting it? What's going on?" And I said, "Well, there's these 4 windows of manifestation. The first window is you basically experience your thinking. Whatever your thinking is, it will transmute itself into an experience. It's window number 1. Window number 2 is called a lesson. Let's say you have a goal, a vision. You're putting something out there. I want my life to be this particular way. But you don't have the energy to hold that life yet. So the universe will give you a lesson that you may not like. But at the end of the day, you say, you know what? If that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Mm-hmm. While you were growing through it, it's like, why is this happening? I don't want this going on. Why did this occur? But you asked for something larger. So the universe is making you a larger container. But it has to process you first. That coal has to become diamond, And so it's intense. When you come out of it, you realize you're different. Now you're vibrationally worthy to have the life that you were envisioning. That's lesson. Window number 3 is called a blessing, meaning there are actual individuals who have come to the planet who have taken on certain things in order to raise the vibration of compassion on the planet. Very quick story. There was a woman who was clairvoyant, clairaudient, and she would work with people. There was a particular woman who was very wealthy, but her heart was closed. She didn't have any friends, no love in her life. She was with her lover. She ended up having a baby. And the baby, at this time, back in those days, it was called mental retardation. She loved this baby. And her heart opened. She became a different person based on having this child. Philanthropic, giving, generous. At the age of 11 or 12, the boy slipped into the pool and died. And so this lady named Helen Greaves comes on the scene, and she talks to the boy who had passed over. She had that kind of ability. Discovered he was a tremendous avatar, tremendous high state of consciousness, who had purposely taken on this incarnation to open up her heart because he had known her in other lifetimes. So what looked like, well, why is this boy born like this? And then why did he die? Oh my God, there's so much tragedy. He actually had taken on that incarnation to become a blessing to these people. Window number 3, that happens with large groups of people, Holocaust, slavery at times, different things that have occurred. Individuals or groups of people will sometimes take an incarnation to raise the whole level of humanity. So humanity would say that should never happen again. We need to have laws against child labor. We need to have laws against racism. We need to rise up. So sometimes we shouldn't judge by appearances because we don't know why a certain thing is happening in a person's life. It could be their thinking. It could be a lesson they're learning, or it could be that they're actually bringing a blessing. And the 4th window is the group consciousness. The first one is individual, how I'm thinking. The 4th one is, as long as there's a belief collectively in lack, scarcity, disease, limitation, as long as that's a collective belief, somebody's going to experience it, unless they're strong enough to transcend it. So that's what came through, those 4 windows of it. Of course, it doesn't explain everything, but it keeps people from judging by appearances, because we don't know what a person's growing through, whether they're confused or worried themselves to death, or worried themselves into a disease, or whether they're in the midst of a lesson. I remember a friend of mine who was an attorney that went through some very hard times. And when he came through it, he became a minister, actually. And he didn't give up his legal life. But while he was growing through it, it transformed his life. And he would say, man, I'm so glad that negative stuff happened to me. It was negative at the time, but it purified his soul, Yeah.
That's powerful. I mean, when you said it, I immediately thought that the worst thing that ever happened to me, I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
Like, it's really one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I wouldn't trade it. I mean, it's terrible, absolute. But also I realized that within that, I could have stayed. I could have stayed stuck in it.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the challenges that we face today is when the thing is going on, it's not very fun. It's not an easy situation for us to be like, you know what, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to me someday.
Right.
So it's being aware in those moments. And I think this goes back to having those tools.
Right.
So that we can process the information, so that we can have that meta perspective.
Right.
When it's going on. This is even a day-to-day context when something you don't like shows up. Just having that sense of presence that, for me, like I said, I could have really got stuck in that. And also the environment would have given me permission.
Right.
Nobody necessarily expected more of me.
Right.
But there was something within me that said, just keep moving forward.
Right.
Keep moving forward.
Absolutely. When we're stuck in that loop, the mind wants to go to wishful thinking. I wish this wasn't happening. Yeah. But it is. I wish I wasn't where I am right now. But you are. And I wish I hadn't done whatever I did to set this in motion. But you did. So the mind would try to take you into wishful thinking. But if you can grab the mind instead and say, one thing I'll teach people is to say, if this, whatever this thing is, were to last forever, what quality would I have to have peace of mind? What quality? And what happens is if you ask a question like that, your mind will start to go towards that quality, less towards the resistance of what's happening. And then that'll become a cauldron of transformation. And when it's over, you'll have more of that quality because that's what you are interested in. It's tough. I'm not saying it's an easy thing. Yeah. That's why we have coaches. That's why we have practitioners. That's why we have, enlightened therapists that can coach a person through that, keep their attention high while they're going through the most dark period of times, Yeah. I remember that this ring right here that I wear, this was made by a jeweler, gave it to me as a gift. I had done his wedding. 2 months later, he calls me from jail. And he says, Reverend Michael, I want you to pray for me, for my wife. I'm going to have to do probably 5. I got caught going through Texas with a trunk full of marijuana before it was all legal and everything, and still not legal in Texas probably. But and I said, well, wait a minute. God doesn't really know those kind of prayers. God only knows qualities like freedom, love, joy. I said, let's try an experiment. I said, so I sent him a book. I said, I want you to read this book every day. I want you to read the 91st Psalm every day. I said, then I want you to write down what you're going to do with your life when you get out of jail. He said, man, I'm not going to get out for 5 years. I said, just write down what you're going to do when you get out of jail. What do you want your life to be about? Do you want to be a lifetime marijuana dealer? What do you want to do? He said, no, I want to be a jeweler. I've had this idea of doing jewelry, and I'm an artist. I said, okay, write it down. I said, now bless the judge, bless the prosecutor, bless your attorney, and stay out of the legality. That's their job. That's not your job. Your job is to see your life, how you want it to be, bless everybody, and hold this space. So he goes for the arraignment. Prosecutor is there. Prosecutor picks up his briefcase. The papers are lost. all of the evidence, all of his evidentiary processes. He doesn't know where it is. The judges live it. And the judge has to set him free, but they have 30 days to refile. And anyway, they can't keep him. He flies to Hawaii with his wife. They never tried to get him again. So he ended up starting this one jewelry company. So he made me a number of rings that he's made me. He's got 2 companies in Hawaii. He's a great artist, great jeweler, totally walked out of there free. Like I said, the presence, whatever name you want to call the presence, it only knows freedom, but you have to vibrationally match yourself to that.
Yeah. So
he was doing this drug deal to pay off his child support. Then he became aware that his life was full of abundance. It's a great possibility. He didn't need to do it. And that was the worst time in his life, being in jail. But it became the best time in his life because he learned all about his own mind and speaking of his word and the law and how it works, So every now and then he'll call me or he'll send me a piece of jewelry, or something to that effect. And
that's powerful. That's a launching pad. It was a launching pad.
Yeah.
And even in that, you instructed him basically to ask questions like, what does my life look like?
Right.
And questions really can, in many ways, be, this is the time with the Olympics are coming up. And I'm thinking about a springboard. Mm-hmm. Questions could be a springboard that you could do all kinds of crazy, flips and twists with, or you could belly flop.
You could. If you ask
the wrong question.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking back to when everything changed, when I was in the worst time, the worst moment of my life. Why is it, and I'm going to ask you this question, I'm going to circle back to it. Why is it in that moment that I finally asked a new question when things were as bad as possible? But it took things to get to that place for me. I was habitually asking and wishing. I was a human wishing well, just, throwing pennies at myself. Like, I wish that somebody would help me. I wish that I would be, whatever the case might be. But after hearing from all these experts that I couldn't be well, that I would never walk normally again, that I would be in pain for the rest of my life. I was a kid still, I was 20 years old. Everything changed when I simply asked a different question. And it changed. I asked, what can I do to get healthy?
Right.
And my entire universe changed.
That's right. Absolutely. The universe will answer any question you ask. That's the nature of it. Most people ask disempowering questions. What's wrong? Who's to blame? Why me? What should I do about it? Why did this happen? So, we live in a multidimensional universe, okay? So as long as you're asking that question, you're at the lower rung of the dimensions. There's a whole nother world, okay? And so when you begin to ask an empowering question, you're actually lifted out of that world. You're not in that world anymore. You're in another world.
Instantly.
I'm up here now. And up here, from the mountaintop, I have a different point of view than if I'm just in the valley. I see things differently. I'm hearing wisdom and guidance and direction. Answers are flowing. And I'm in a different world. It's difficult to teach at times because this is where you start moving from metaphysics to mysticism. You're at a whole another level of seeing. It's a whole different world that exists. But most people are content, they think they are anyway, to live in this small world when this other world exists. But you have to ask the right question to get there. The password, who am I? The password, who am I? What do I represent? What am I here to reveal? What gift do I have to give? What does my life really mean? You got to ask a different level of questioning,
This is making me inquire because this awareness is who you are now. Like you mentioned earlier, some people are a human filing cabinet, and then others, you're it.
Yeah.
You embody it. And with your practices, because it also is a practice, it's a continuous practice, I would love to know how your day is set up. Like, is this something that you start your day with, these practices? What does your morning routine look like for Michael Beckwith?
It has evolved over the years because with every moment of inspired wisdom or insight, there's greater integration, greater embodiment. So I can remember over the years, I would meditate for hours on meditation retreats, just live a life of meditation until as a moment comes where I'm not really out of that space. You know, I do my meditation in the morning, but I'm always in kind of a reflective awareness. I'm aware of what my mind is doing, okay? But what I do is I wake up and I will go into a moment of gratitude. I'll actually put a smile on my face, even if I don't feel like it, you know? And you probably know this already, but just when you smile, a ton of chemicals flow through your body, even if you're not feeling it, you know? So I'll smile. I'll be grateful that I'm grateful that I exist. I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm not grateful for stuff yet, just that I'm alive. And then I surrender to life. It's like I yield to the potential that's within me. And then I ask for the strength to do whatever my assignment is for the day, whatever comes across my path. Okay. So that's when I wake up. Then I will sit and have some moments of meditation. Then I'll go work out. Now that particular sitting is not a long sitting. You know, I'll go work out first, get some sweat on, you know. Then when I come back home, it'll be a longer sitting. It's something about either doing yoga or lifting or something that prepares you to sit. So now I'm sitting, and that's a longer period of time. The minimum is 22 minutes. The maximum will be whatever my schedule allows me to do. So then throughout the course of the day, there'll be moments of sitting, the staff member, or praying, and then in the evening, have a moment of sitting. So it's integrated into my life. Now before, it was really, over the years, was really intense, you know. Then after, it doesn't have to be that intense for me anymore, even though I love it. Mm-hmm. You know, I did an intense meditation training a couple of months ago in Sedona. And it was 7 days of intense biofeedback, polygraph machines, hours and hours of feedback, you know, and I do that. That's a reset. I do that every couple of years. I love it. It's intense, but you're changed when you come out of there. So I still love, I'm a solitary guy. I love my aloneness. I love people. But I think my base is I like being by myself. But I love people, you know. So that practice, it varies. You know, sometimes I have, you know, the magnets we talked about.
Yeah.
They're right by my bed. I do the magnet, I do little qigong moves, you know, and that will be my meditation. So it just varies. I do breath work every day. I do breath work before I speak, you know. But now that I'm talking to you, there are things that I do, I forget about them because they're just part of,
right.
Just part of the deal. You know, I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to sit down and do breath work now. I just know, okay, I'm getting ready to speak. I'm getting ready to, you know, I got so many minutes. I just go in, I meditate, and I start doing the breath of fire. Then I do the slow 8-4 count breath, and then I'll go up and speak. You know, so it's all integrated into my life, but it's not like I'm doing a spiritual practice. It's just like a part of me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And the magnets, those we talked about, I think it was Peter Ragnar.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, who put us onto that. Because I got actually, I don't know if I told you this, I got a magnetic mattress pad at one point.
I did too.
The dreams were crazy.
Yeah, I did too.
Crazy.
I slept on that. I used to sleep under a copper pyramid over my whole bed.
So
for years.
So you was on some.
That was years ago.
John Carter. You was showing up on Mars.
Honestly, and, you know, I've always been like going to the edge of whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then I remember having a dream that the pyramid broke. I took that as a sign that I didn't need to do that anymore.
Right. Right.
You know, so I don't even know where that pyramid is, but it was 100% copper, and the dreams were intense, and it was much easier to leave your body and go flying and things like that, and then that was over. Yeah,
I love that too. That's another thing about some of the great leaders and teachers is that willingness to experiment,
right?
The willingness to listen to that inner guidance system.
Yeah,
and you know, so we got the magnetic aspect. We've got the qigong. We've got the meditation. And when I was with you at your place, I was surprised by that because I was wondering about that. Like, do you exercise first and then do your meditation session? And then because of you, I flipped it, you know, the funny thing is, it's not even that funny. Well, everything is funny, is I've enjoyed my meditation in a different way now.
Yeah.
You know, by doing a little bit of, you know, getting my heart rate up, getting my blood moving, and then doing my practice.
Right.
So because prior I was like, you know, I'd get up, do some reading, do a meditation session, just kind of like a very like,
I still do that.
Slow vibe.
Yeah.
But then like you just mentioned, yeah, especially if it's a shorter thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But for a longer session, I found a little bit more juice by doing a little bit of exercise.
Yeah.
Prior.
People forget that yoga came into being to prepare one for meditation. You know, in the West, it became more of an exercise, physique kind of thing. But the advent of yoga in Egypt and in India is how you prepared yourself for meditation. You would do your asanas, build up your chi, be able to hold more energy, then you would sit. It wasn't, I'm going to sit and then do the yoga. It was the other way around. You do the yoga, then you would sit. So the same way, you do your exercise first, and then it's easier to sit. You're not as fidgety because you've expanded your vessel to hold more energy. You can sit for longer periods of time.
When we're sitting inside of a familiar discomfort, and by the way, discomfort isn't just from lack, discomfort isn't just from fear. A discomfort could be, I know I've outgrown this place. Though you might be impressed with me, though I might have accolades and BAs and AAs and MBAs and PhDs or whatever I have, I've outgrown this season. What I see most, I work a lot with leadership, women in leadership, men in leadership. And while leadership is beautiful, they've outgrown their current leadership and they've been there for a while. But the reason why they haven't moved is because they're more committed to a familiar, keyword is familiar, Shawn, familiar discomfort, which discomfort could also be you're ready to grow and you're not, than they are to an unfamiliar, keyword is unfamiliar, new possibility. Because one is familiar, even though I don't really care for it anymore. The other is unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar, unknown, uncharted turf makes me hesitate. That's the number one reason that I see is we want everything to be familiar. We want evidence before we go. We want you to predict the future that I'm for sure going to make it before I take a step. And you can't do that in new possibility. You can project, you can strategize, you can action plan, you can get teamed up. And then you, at some level, you got to take the jump at the possibility that you'll fly or at the possibility that you'll fall. But most people want to ensure the fly so much that they never jump.
Oh my goodness. So you just said something really powerful, which is we want to bring this Miss Cleo vibe to it, you know, to be able to, I can see the future. I see what's going to happen and get that level of certainty before we act. And truly, and you know this, you've been around some of the most successful people on planet Earth, and it's really about going into the unknown. That's what the most successful people are doing.
Yes. Being willing to take the risk on you. Being willing to take the risk on it. Being willing to recognize that there is a chance. ... We're trying to control the outcome and take away the chance. There is a chance, ... And so most of us want to be insured. That's why entrepreneurs for 25 years ago, a lot of us were considered crazy because there was no trapeze net. Like you're flying with your family in the air. You know, you probably heard it. You want to do these things and there's no net. Well, here's the reality. Can you trust your fly or can you trust your get up? Now that's the thing. Is that most people think when they fall, there's no get up. The difference between me and most, and I'm not perfect, I'm still in this journey, is that I trust my get up. I won't always say I'm a fly because Lord knows my failures these days are 6 figures, 7 figures, and require an attorney. And I still, and they're big. And when I've been paying for the same poor decision for 5 years. I've been paying for it. Like my attorney told me it was going to cost me $300,000 to $500,000 to fix it. We're at 1.7 million. And so you still fall. You still fall. But if you're willing to trust your get up, and most people are still wondering if they're get up, or the other part, Shawn, is they're trying to protect the fall because they still want to prove to someone that they won't fall. So if you're in the proving, protecting, defending, or hiding business, proving, protecting, defending, or hiding business, you're going to hold yourself back all the time because you don't want to show up as anything other than perfect.
We got to talk about those right there.
Prove, protect, defend, or hide.
Okay, so the proving, a lot of us, of course, and this can be rooted in our childhood. You know, we're trying to prove to our parent. We are trying to prove to our friends. You know, so I definitely see that one. But I want to talk more about the rest of those too, because those just hit my spirit.
Yes. Prove, protect, hide, or defend. So most of us grow into that naturally. We don't even know that we naturally kind of graduate into it, and you have to take yourself out of it with intention. It's not a normal conscious thing to not have prove, protect, defend, or hide inside your space. So society sets us up to compete. Society sets us up to compare. Society sets us up unless you choose to opt out. I opt out. So when you talk about protecting, you're protecting your perception of how the world needs to see you. When you're proving that you're smart enough, good enough, wise enough. When you're hiding, most people are constantly hiding their insecurities. You're hiding your need. If you think your need is making you seem more vulnerable, you're hiding your vulnerability. That's why when you meet people, it's very difficult for them to open up and share immediately. That's why our tribe is so delicious, because we've learned how to open up and give me your real you faster, sooner, quicker, faster, right? But most people need to warm up for weeks and months because they're still hiding anything that they think may cause you to lose respect for them or not like them as much or not appreciate. And these are unconscious hides, just so you know. People don't consciously do this, right? So prove, protect, hide, or defend. A lot of us are defending an old limiting belief we had about ourselves or about someone else had about us. We're defending it in who we're being now. So I have a friend who, when he was little, his mother told him that don't wear white shirts because you get too dirty. Don't wear white shirts, you get too dirty. And as an adult, he says, I have 160 white shirts, still defending the fact that I get to wear a white shirt. Like, we operate as adults, still defending or proving, protecting or hiding, even stuff that we've outgrown years ago. Yeah. And that comes from the place of needing to be enough, needing to be accepted. I had someone the other day, my assistant reached out to her and was confirming something. And her response and my assistant called her by her first name. We do first names in my company. And this woman's response to my assistant was, please address me as Miss such and such. And if I wanted to talk to Lisa's assistant, I would have asked to talk to Lisa's assistant. I prefer to talk to Lisa. My assistant, her feelings were hurt. What I took her to was, before you live in hurt, what is it that she needs? And she said confirmation and validation. I said, so what could be the lack? She lacks being seen and being appreciated and being valued. I said, so let's give her what she needs. So my immediate response to her in email was, if my assistant reaching out to you in any form made you feel dismissed, I apologize. Wasn't my agenda. In order for you to get put on my calendar, it must go through my assistant because she manages my calendar. And so the first thing I did was gave her need to be validated. So when you so the needs don't come up straight. Like, I mean, it's not a needy portrayed need. It flexes in ego, it flexes in she-go. It comes out in being a super sister soldier. It comes out in being a dynamic, strong brother. It comes out in saying, I don't need help. Because you're still proving that you're good enough by yourself. Or you're still defending or protecting your fear of being abandoned. Do you know that a lot of people who say they don't need help, I don't want anyone, I can do it on my own, they're protecting their fear of being abandoned. Now, it doesn't come up that way. It comes up as strong, by myself, long ranger, solopreneur, right? Do it with myself, by myself. But really, underneath all of those contracting behaviors, every single contracting behavior is sourced with either need to prove, protect, defend, or hide.
This is so good, so powerful. These four, and I want to share this because you said something a little bit earlier about, being a rogue idea. 25 years ago, if you're an entrepreneur, you're just like, they're out here, they're just, taking risks, they're wilding out, they need a safe job.
Responsible.
Be responsible. And so for me, this was 20 years ago now. It was knocking on the door 20 years. And I remember, I was in college at the time, and I had this big revelation. My health had transformed. I was feeling good. Now people at my university were attracted to me, and they're asking me for help. So like my professors, fellow students, and they start becoming my clients, so I became a strength and conditioning coach. And when I met this girl, so I was, quote, I was dating this girl. And when she met me, I had a job, sometimes just over broke, but I had this job. I was working at the arena there in our city. And also, of course, I was a college student. So it checked her boxes. And so when I told her, she was asking like, so how's work going? I'm like, well, actually, I stopped doing that, and I'm really focused on working in the gym. And she was like, oh, so you have a hobby? And I was like, what? No, like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so what it was for me, and these four things, prove, protect, hiding, defending, none of those came up for me. And I could see that how they could have been there. But this is what I want to ask you about. What energy do we need to shift to? So for me, it was my excitement. It was my passion. It was my wanting to serve other people. Those were the energies that, like, it actually made it so that even her statement today, it was funny. Even then, it was funny. It was like, oh, you don't know.
Right.
So what energy do we shift to?
So it is the energy of excitement, the energy of certainty, that you can have certainty even while you're developing the plan. I'm not asking for certainty on the plan. I'm developing that. I have certainty on the outcome.
Yes.
So that energy of certainty is contagious. I remember I was doing an investor meeting early on. Now, mind you, my first company, 23 years ago, I measure by the age of my child. He was 3 years old when I started. He's 26 now. 23 years ago, I was raising capital for my company. Mind you, I'm raising money for motivating the teen spirit, teaching teens how to fall madly in love with themselves and how to make integrity-based decisions. So I'm raising money to sell an intangible called personal development to a body of people, teenagers between the age of 12 and 25, that we don't even know if they want to use the service, right? Think about it. So it was all uphill. And oh, by the way, I had no experience doing this. I just had a lot of passion, and I didn't have a degree that said it increased my credibility. Uphill battle, but I'm on fire, and I'm out there, and I have my shtick. And I got to tell you, I can remember my shtick today, Shawn. Hi, my name is Lisa Nichols. I'm the founder and creator of Motivating the Teen Spirit. We will teach teens how to fall madly in love with themselves and how to make integrity-based decisions. We're creating a training and development company that will transform teen lives one teen at a time. We will be to the teen community what McDonald's is to the burger community. Who do you know that wants to be a part of this? I just had my little thing, right? And so I was on fire. And the more I stepped into doing the work with teens, the more I was sold out on the work I could do with teens. So you got to be sold out. And when I say a spirit and an energy of sold out, which means I'm inviting you to jump on board. The train has already left the station. I'm not asking you to push the train. I'm inviting you to jump on the train. I'm stopping by to say, all aboard. And the train's going to leave with you or without you. So you can choose. When you have that energy, without saying that, you don't have to say the train's going to leave with you or without you. That's all in context. That's all in movement. I remember I was doing an investor meeting. Now, mind you, Shawn, everything was stacked against me. Everything was stacked against me. I was young. I'm like 33 at the time. Jelani's like 3 years old at the time. I have no social proof evidence of what I'm going to do. But I am working with teens a little bit. I only been working with teens like 2 years at the time, and I'm doing my shtick. And this engineer, I'll never forget his name. I never forget him. And he and his wife, he said, Miss Nichols, my wife and I don't have children. We consciously decided not to have children. We don't even know if we like children. I kid you not. He said these words. He said, but you are so on fire and you're so sold out on what you're doing. I feel like it's our fiscal responsibility to be a part of what you're doing. And he invested $25,000 in my company. And so when you talk about that energy, it's that energy of certainty. And so much so, Shawn, that you can say, we haven't figured out the entire path yet. We're still developing our marketing plan. You can even speak to what you're in progress doing. And so that energy of you didn't know, you didn't know, like an energy of certainty versus an energy of wonder. It's contagious and done in an authentic way, not in a way where you're trying to sell someone a shtick, not in a way where you're inauthentic, but in a way where you feel it in your cells. When I was in The Secret, I didn't even know this part of The Secret would become so famous when I said, I know, like I know, like I know. That just got a millions and millions of views that people would just cut that out and replay that. I didn't know it was going to do that. I was speaking of myself. I was speaking of what got me there. I know, like I know, like I know, even without the physical evidence. Then I go back because what I do is I see the outcome with clear detail. I outline the outcome. I outline the deliverables. I outline the results. I outline what people are saying. I outline how they feel. I outline how their life is different. And then I say, well, that's the outcome that I'm going to create. I reverse engineer everything I have to do to get myself there. But I begin with the end in mind and I hold on to the end at all costs.
You know what? This is powerful. We gotta dive in deeper here because you just mentioned, so a lot of folks know you, obviously millions of people from seeing you in The Secret. And this is a film that's really focuses on the law of attraction. Yeah. But for some folks that can sound a little bit unrealistic. But what you just said was, you got to dive in deeper on this. Your level, it's not just I think of this thing and it happens. Your level of specificity is remarkable, what you just talked about. So can you make this law make sense for people?
Absolutely. I would love it. I went on tour for the next 5 years talking about how to make the law of attraction really work in your life. Because so many people said, oh, I could just sit on the couch and dream about it. I said, no, you're just going to have a big butt dent. That's literally what I said on stage for the next 5 years. Like, if you just sit and believe and you focus on the mailbox and a check coming, you better do something to make someone want to pay you. Like that, don't forget that part. And so I said, The Secret was 51 minutes of mindset. If we had another 2.5 hours, we would have told you what you have to do when you get up, right? So when you think about something, number one, I do guided visualizations. And I didn't grow up, I grew up Baptist. I didn't grow up doing guided visualizations. I grew up praying, right? But as I grew, I always say your mindset and your culture and your religious background or your spiritual origin is one lane. What the reason why our differences are so important, Shawn, because your one lane called Shawn Stevenson, your one lane called Lisa Nichols, your one lane meets someone else's one lane. Who's white or who's Asian, who's Buddhist, or who's, they say mother God versus father God. And then you meet someone else's one lane. And your one lane plus their one lane makes a super highway. That was a big learning for me because I grew up with my one lane, Baptist, Christian, Black, and I wanted to understand the superhighway. And so inside the conversation of a superhighway, I learned guided visualizations. Guided visualizations were synonymous in my world to prayer, but it's different. So guided visualization, and then I put extras on it, because I'm extra and I like that extra texture. And if it moves me, I believe it can move anybody. That's my mindset. So I want to know, can I be moved by it? And so guided visualization begins with the end in mind. And it not only begins with the end in mind, but it has great texture to the end. And if I could take you on just a quick journey, I talk about being on a freeway. And on your way, let's say if I'm taking you on this guided visualization and you're on a highway and you're on your way to this keynote. And at this keynote, you are to speak and you're prepared yourself to speak. You stop by your home and your wildest dreams have come true, Shawn. And matter of fact, you've surpassed them. So the dream you have for your life, the house, the car, the bank account balance, see it in detail. And then double what it looks like because you surpassed your dreams. So when you stop by your home, the gates automatically open. And you drive your weekend car a half a mile up to your front door. And you stand at your front door and the double doors open 12 feet, 14 feet tall each side. And you step into Tavernine floors and you step into a spiral staircase and you didn't even have this in your mind when you were visualizing the home. You smell the lavender. You smell the rosemary. You smell that fragrance of fresh cut flowers as well. You hear laughter in the background and you hear some really amazing neo soul playing or some jazz playing. And you hear a lot of laughter and you recognize the laughter and you say, oh my God, that's layers and layers and layers of people. That's like 5, 6, 7, 9, 12, 13 people. You walk into the massive kitchen, center island, everyone's standing around the island. It's your family. It's people that you've seen recently and people that you haven't seen for a long time. And all of a sudden, everyone moves around the table and the people begin to pray and they all are thanking you for creating this lifestyle for them. They're thanking you for creating this space that they can come to. It's out of their wildest dreams. And they thank you and you realize in the middle of them thanking you, you have to go. And you say, stay as long as you want. Enjoy dinner. I'll be back later on. And if you feel like it, if you drink a little too much or you get too excited or you get too sleepy, stay the night. We have more than enough rooms for everyone. And you feel good that there's space for your entire family. No one has to put out an air mattress. You leave out and you get into your weekend car. So it probably has a top down because it's your fun car. And you get on the highway and you get back on the road and you begin to drive and you're on your way to this keynote and you get stuck in a traffic jam. You start freaking out a little bit, feel yourself getting a little agitated the way you get in traffic. And all of a sudden you say, oh my God, I'm going to be late. Oh my God, I'm going to be late. You finally arrive to the event and yes, you're about 10 minutes late. You go inside, you're apologetic. They say, no worry, Mr. Stevenson, no worry. No worries. We're happy that you're here. You walk out on stage. You weren't quite sure how many people were going to be here, but you walk out on stage and you're shocked when you see over 10,000 people in this stadium. This wasn't a little speaking event. This was a mega event. You walk up to the podium. That's your feet walking. You put your paper down and you get ready to step into your speech. And you open up with what you open up with because you're so humble. Thank you. And before you can say another word, Shawn, someone yells from the back, no, thank you. And then another person says, thank you. And person 997, thank you. Person 556, thank you. Person in seat number 5,898 way in the back, thank you. And then as if a tidal wave of thank yous, all you hear is thank you, thank you, thank you. And you're processing it. Thank you for the late nights. Thank you for the early mornings. Thank you for stretching the dollar so it can go further, so you can make one more podcast so it can touch me. Thank you. Thank you for being scared until you weren't scared anymore. Thank you for being a unicorn and strange until you weren't strange anymore. Thank you for doing it alone until the team showed up. Thank you, thank you. You stand there There's no space for you to speak because everyone is saying thank you. They're waiting their turn. 15 minutes later, you haven't said a word. And finally, you get it. 25 minutes later, as the whole room is saying thank you, you didn't come to speak. You came to hear them speak to you. And you tell them, we're going to be here all night, but I'm going to close every door and leave one door open. And I'm going to hug each one of you. Because this is when it's all safe to hug everybody, thank God. And you hug each person. And as you hug the 20-year-old girl, she says, thank you for letting me know I can dream again. And as you hug the 45-year-old man, he says, thank you, brother, for letting me know that it's not too late. And as you hug the 68-year-old woman, she says, oh, thank you for reminding me that it ain't over till it's over. And as you hug the 19-year-old, he says, thank you for letting me know I can do it at my own pace, at my own flavor, in my own time. Every single person thanks you for their unique journey. And when the last person has hugged you, go back home. Your home is sleep. Everyone's resting. And as you close the door, you look around at your beautiful home. And he says, you're welcome. You're all welcome. We all have a right to have a dream. And we have a bigger right to watch that dream become our reality. I began to do guided visualizations like that, where I could see it. You could see the traffic jam. You could see the people. You can smell the lavender. You can see the taverntine floors. You can see the people. You can see the person in seat 568. I began to visualize Shawn in such a way like it feels right now. The hair on the back of my neck standing up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and you can feel it. It's not enough to see it. Now, a lot of people visualize so you see it. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to feel it because when you feel it, you're going to chase that familiar feeling. That's the feeling we have when we're in love. You feel love either as a child or as a young adult, to a parent, a sibling, a friend, a romance. And we spend a lifetime trying to chase that utopia again. Now, what you have with your wife, that thing, you want to keep that thing. You want to keep rekindling it because your body has a familiar feeling that your mind says, no. This is my natural substance that I choose to keep in my spirit. That's why with guided visualizations, you want to have it. So when it came to The Secret, I was real big on visualize it, see it in detail, but go a step beyond, feel it. And now get up and go get it. Yeah. Do everything you need to do. Move the mountain. Tell the mountain to move over, bow down, or go through it. Get the team members. Release the team members if necessary. Stand tall, stand strong. Ask questions. Be brilliant and be curious. Know everything about some things and be willing to know nothing about the next thing. Whatever you need to do.
Now, what happens is an individual gets sick and tired of being sick and tired. Fannie Lou Hamer coined that particular stage. You know, they asked her, how she was able to move the way she moved, and she said, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, when you get to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're open for change. Yeah. And then a new thought will come in, and a book may fall off the shelf, or they may hear your podcast, or, what happens is something opens up in someone. So we have to be out there planting seeds, And what happens is those seeds hit people, and at the right time, they germinate. They may not go in the first time they hear it. They say, "Oh, that's nothing." They don't understand my experience. I'm, next door to a crack house. What does he know? But that seed is planted, and then one day when that individual is sick and tired of being sick and tired, they remember something you said, some technique, some technology, some statement. And once they become interested, see, the word interest it comes from a word that means to love. Once you become interested in something, then the universe opens up for you. It starts to bring you serendipitous coincidences. Things start to come into you start to meet the right people, start to hear the right things once you're interested. And when a person becomes sick and tired, they become interested. So I say, pain pushes you until the vision pulls you. So pain is pushing. Yeah. And then something happens. You get sick and tired of the pain. You become interested, and then you start to be pulled by something else. And then, a quantum leap. You have a quantum leap. The quantum leap means that you've gone from one level to another without a ladder. It's a quantum leap. I'm interested in this. Mm-hmm. So now that you're interested in this, you start to see what you're interested in. You see? Well, if you're interested in not getting robbed, if you're interested in not getting sick, you see robbery and sickness. But if you become interested in health, you become interested in prosperity, you become interested in success, you start to see life differently. You start to see possibilities. And once you start to see possibilities combined with intention, the door opens up. It's a different life.
It's like you've been watching me this whole time, like I'm the Truman Show, because that's exactly what happened,
Yeah.
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. My body, it broken down. I was 20 years old. I was diagnosed with this so-called incurable spinal condition.
Right.
And it just kind of robbed me of my youth and my potential and all the things that were instilled in me, that I was going to be the one to rise up out of our environment. And here I was, the worst of the worst. And it took 2 years for me to really to hit that point. Like that rock bottom point is such a good place to be.
Yeah.
I really woke up.
Say that again, because the victim is listening to you right now.
Yeah, the rock bottom point is actually a great place to be.
Yeah.
It's a firm place to stand up from. And once I shifted, I asked a simple question. Okay, so the physician's been telling me that there's nothing I can do, but my bones were degenerating. And I asked, what are my bones made of? Like, let me investigate what's happening with my body. I hadn't done that the whole time. I just been expecting them to help me, right? And they weren't giving me the answers I was looking for. It took 4 different physicians to tell me no, until I just decided, let me go and look at this myself. I live with myself all the time, but I don't know a thing about myself. And so I became interested in health. And also being in college, when I graduated high school, I was like, because of the Cosby Show, I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor, right? And so I went pre-med, and I hated science. Like, I hated it with a passion. And the upperclassmen were always so obsessed with like self-diagnosis and just pathology. Like, there's this problem, that problem. It just freaked me out. And I actually shifted. It's so crazy, the influences with television, but I shifted from the pre-med to marketing because of watching Boomerang with Eddie Murphy. I was like, I'll do that, Strawn J, And so, anyways, but it all circled back to health, because of asking the question. And I knew, because of that experience, that seed that was planted, they were focused on sickness.
Right.
Let me find out about what it takes to be healthy.
Yes.
And so I became interested in that.
Right. Well, you did something very powerful. You asked an empowering question. Now, most people, the victim is asking what's wrong, who's to blame, and why me. When you come out of that and you start to ask, what's health? What is prosperity? What is success? Now, those questions will be answered, because the universe, by law, will answer any question that you ask. So if you ask, why me? You're going to get a whole lot of reasons and excuses as to why you're in the situation you're in. But if you ask, what is the nature of health? You asked about your bones. You asked about yourself. What's the nature of health? You discovered it little by little by little, and then you applied it, and you're healthy, you see? So you actually did that. So if you're going back to the person, you asked the question earlier, somebody's in the ditch. They're a victim. They want to get out. Start asking an empowering question. Ask the question like, what gift is trying to emerge through me? If you don't have any money, ask, what is the nature of prosperity? Just ask the question. What is the nature of success? Not, why did so-and-so do this to me? Why did they steal from me? Why is the man on my back? Why? No. Those are unanswerable questions. That's pathology.
Yeah.
Ask, what is the nature of success? And become interested in it, and then come into your atmosphere. You'll meet somebody. A book will come to you. You'll hear this podcast. And then with that interest, you'll get your next assignment. You'll get your next level of practice. Your life will change. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. I'm just thinking about so many of those moments where the book came along.
Yeah.
The podcasts weren't a thing yet, so it was like audio program.
Right.
The person, I met this woman probably 2 years, maybe 3 years earlier when I first went to college, before I got kicked out the first college. But now she ended up back into my awareness, and she was a chiropractor now. She was graduate. She was older.
Right.
And she had graduated. And when I was trying to get healthy and learning about all these nutrients because I was looking like, what does it take to build bone, right? Bone density. And we know about calcium from marketing.
Right.
And so I found out there's like 25 other things, and many of them are more important, and you can't even assimilate calcium without them.
You got to have the other stuff to assimilate calcium. You take it by itself, it's just going to go out your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize, and I started being a natural pill popper, right? So I'm taking all these supplements because I was like, I just got to get those things in, which was a step because I was interested in trying to figure it out. But the person came along and she took me to Wild Oats, back in the day before Whole Foods scooped them up. And it was just like, what is all this? And they had juicing. And I till that point, I'm still kind of embarrassed, but I didn't eat a salad until I was in my 20s. This is why my body broke down. I grew up in a different environment where, it was just fast food.
Right.
And so I started, by getting the juice, I got those nutrients into my body, and it started to reset my palate, as you talked about earlier. Right. And so just like those synchronicities do happen. And I want to talk to you about, and once we get to that place where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we understand that we do have power to affect change.
The law of attraction is what I call a linguistic convenience for really the law of radiation. You're actually radiating something. You're actually emanating a vibration. And then that vibration condenses itself as your experience, and it looks like you're attracting it to you, but you're actually sending that frequency out. And so the idea is you're seeking to become the next great vision and version of yourself. And so the law of attraction is a good entry-level conversation. How do I attract this to come to me? Now, you can't attract something if you're not it. If you're not holding that vibration, you can manipulate and get it into your life, but you won't be able to keep it because you're not vibrating at its frequency, which is why, like, say, people who steal that haven't earned it generally lose what they steal. They can't keep it. They have to keep stealing because they don't have the consciousness of actually having that. So if you steal somebody's car, that person is just going to have the insurance company buy them a new car. That's a part of them. They're not going to... It's going to be a minor inconvenience, but they're going to get another car. But the person who stole the car is going to ditch it after a while. They're going to have to sell it to steal another car, They're not it. They're not the thing, you see. So the law of attraction is actually, I teach the law of radiation, the law of radiance, the law of emergence. What does that mean? We live in a field of infinite possibilities, infinite potential. And things already exist in the potential form. And when you're at their proper frequency, they emerge, much like a rose emerges from a rose bush seed. It doesn't attract it. The seed is not attracting a rose. Inside of that seed, the rose bush emerges from it. Inside of an avocado seed, there's a tree that emerges from it. The seed is not attracting the avocado. It's already in there. So in the beginning stage, as we learn these things, it's just easier to say the law of attraction. Yeah. You see. But eventually, you have to actually become that vibration. So through study and practice, as you have done, your life changes. You're not just teaching this stuff, you're actually living this. This is who you are. Yeah. This is who you are. You cannot be separated from this. If somebody were to kidnap you and throw you into another country, you'd still be this, you see. Yeah. And in a short while, you'd manifest this all over again. If somebody said, you can't live in America, you have to go live, send them back. You got to go live somewhere else. Yeah. Within 30 days, you'd be up and running because this is who you are. You understand? So we segue. How do we segue? Stage 2, you learn the laws of manifestation, right speech, right conversation, right affirmation, the context of right visualization, seeing the kind of life you want to live. This, you become interested. This begins to change your habits, your mental habits and your physical habits. And then there's a point of no return where you actually give birth to the next version of yourself. And now on the way to that, things are coming into your life. So you say, I just met this person. I just attracted this person. I met this person at this party. Whew. You know, we're really getting along. We can really do this business together. It looks like attraction. It is on a certain level, but you're actually becoming that frequency. Then after a while, what happens? You don't see anything but what you're interested in. You can walk into a room and you're going to vibe with the people that you feel each other, and you know right away if somebody's not, really bringing the truth, you're not going to be hanging with them that much. Hey, how you doing? Good to meet you. Peace and blessings. You know what I mean? Yeah. And who you're going to be with are birds of your flock, your tribe. You feel it. It's who you are. Yeah. You see, and so the segue is the practice at stage 2, the visualization, the right speech, being in integrity with your word, all of that until you become something different. And at the next level, you're not even really thinking about those things anymore because they're such a part of you. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that I've heard this multiple times, but a lot of people who are in the health space, they have a tendency to believe that the country is a lot healthier than it is. Mm-hmm. Because it's just the top of mind. Mm-hmm. And so I've had to proactively get myself into different environments because it's so crazy how that's what we see. Right. But then I start to get to a place where to see how else I can serve as well. So it's that place of all I was seeing is health. It's it's not as big a problem as I thought, because it's just, I see it everywhere. The people that I'm around, but I think it can get you a little bit, and that's why there's those levels. Yeah. And you see that there's a bigger thing that take place, and then that's when it starts to happen through me. Right. Of seeing that this is not all that there is. Right.
And two things happen we have to be careful, just conscious of. We get into a bubble, because we're around the people that think like we think. Yeah. It's like I'm at agape. You know what I mean? And there's a certain mindset, there's a certain frequency of conversation. And we do have to be aware that there's large groups of people who are still suffering, large groups of people who don't understand these teachings yet. But we're creating an atmosphere that's making it easier for them to come into this frequency. So I always tell people, there are millions of people who would love, if I'm at a meditation retreat or wherever I'm doing, that would love to be here. But they can't, because right now they're under the vibration of survival. They're not even thinking about meditation because they're trying to eat. So because we can do these practices, we must for the rest of the population. So it's not that it's not that we don't notice that there are things going on in the world that are out of integrity, that are decadent, but we have to keep our frequency high because going down in the ditch is not going to help anybody. The only thing that helps somebody is that when you're rising higher and you bring somebody there rather than going into the pity party. You have to be at a conscious level of celebration, celebrating the fundamental goodness of the universal presence. Then you can help somebody. You can't help them if you're in the ditch. So it's like you have your feet in two places. One, you have your feet in the eternal. One foot's in the eternal. There's no death, there's no loss, there's no birth, there's this eternal presence. And then you have your other foot in time. People die, people losing things. So our job is to bring the eternal into time. So we hang on to the eternal and it becomes real to us, stage 3 and stage 4. But we come into time, as you said, how can I serve? Yeah. How can I alleviate suffering? How can I inspire? How can I encourage? How can I assist? But I can't do it if I'm down here. I can only do it from up here and bringing it into time.
Yeah. You got the time stone on. This is so powerful. It's so powerful. You mentioned earlier right speech. Yeah. So can you elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, well, they're fundamental. The first fundamental principle is unity or oneness. We're one with the presence. And in that presence, and I'm speaking reality, I'm not speaking like religion, you know, it's just like quantum reality. There's only one thing going on everywhere. There are principles of abundance, harmonizing prosperity, health. So you have to make sure that your speech is in alignment with that. So you wouldn't say all the time, you know, I'm sick, or you wouldn't say all the time, I'm broke. You don't want to have that kind of speech. Now, you may be temporarily without money. Your body temporarily may not be at its optimal frequency, but you'd want to have your speech in alignment with where you want to go.
Yeah.
My body's healing right now.
Yeah.
Everything in the universe is conspiring for divine health.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on a upward spiraling path towards prosperity. So my speech would have to be in alignment with where I'm going. Now, of course, there are going to be moments where you vent, moments where you get mad, but then you have to come back so that your speech is in alignment with where you want to go. You know, because your word, that's a vibration. You're releasing a vibration. So you want what comes out of your mouth to be in alignment with where you want to live. So sometimes you have to fast from talking. You know, just be quiet. You know, and that's why we use affirmations. So we're retraining our subconscious mind. You know, I, Michael, am willing to be dynamically prosperous, inspirational, and healthy. Sometimes you got to start with willingness. You can't just jump to, I am this, and mind goes, oh, no, you're not. You can't pay your bills. How can you say you're prosperous? You know, so somebody may have to start with willingness. I'm willing to be an instrument of prosperity, abundance, health, wholeness. And then you slowly come into, I am a vehicle. And so what's happening, it's reprogramming the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And then from there, you start to feel it. Now, I've been saying for 40 years, within the feeling brings the healing. So as you start to feel that, even before it shows up, you start to feel that you're prosperous. You start to feel that you're successful. You start to feel that you're supported. You have the feeling, then it starts to show up in your life. It starts to manifest. What does manifest mean? It means the invisible is now becoming visible. It's invisible as a thought, feeling, but then it becomes visible. It shows up as a possibility, as a door opening. It shows up as an ideal employment. It shows up as a new friendship. It shows up, it starts to manifest. But it's not going to manifest if you're not in integrity with it in your word and in your feeling. You know, so that's where the work is.
Yeah, right.
Because when you're in the ditch, you're complaining. You're using all of your creative energies to find new ways of complaining and new excuse making. I've become creative in excuse making, you know. But once you start to take on the principles, you become creative in how you talk to yourself.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here to optimize your mindset and to achieve your goals faster.
People say to me, well, why do you do your meditations in the morning? I always say, easy. Because if I can overcome myself at the beginning of the day, the rest of the day is easy. That's the biggest mastery, right? Is the self.